Dr. Fauci, were you ever made aware of gain-of-function research on monkeypox being conducted at the National Biodefense Analysis and Countermeasure Center and back at Fort Detrick?
Yo, what's up, everybody?
On the advice of
I didn't think he was
counsel,
going to
I
make it.
respectfully decline to answer.
I didn't think he
based
was gonna
upon my
make it.
rights under the Fifth Amendment of the Constitution.
Dr. Fauci, did the CIA ever
I didn't
transfer
think he was
funds to
gonna make it.
NIH under
Yeah, he's
an
just pleading the fifth.
interagency agreement?
A criminal.
On the advice of counsel, I respectfully decline to answer based upon my rights under the Fifth Amendment of the Constitution.
Questions. Dr. Fauci, did the NIH ever conduct research for or in coordination with any element of the intelligence community, CIA, ODNI?
On the advice of counsel, I respectfully decline to answer based upon my rights under the Fifth Amendment to the Constitution.
The reason why these questions are important is, President Trump has done a ban, and we're glad that he did a ban on gain-of-function research. So we're better off than we were when we had an advocate serving as head of NIAID, an advocate for gain-of-function research. There is still, though, a question, though, whether or not the intelligence community is adhering to that order.
What's
There's a
the
question
benefit
whether or not
of
gain-of-function
this
research
whole
is still ongoing.
circus?
And these are important
If he's just
questions
going to plead
American
the
people
fifth
deserve
like
to know.
this.
Dr. Fauci, have you been read into any classified Department of Homeland Security program, any prospective special access program concerning gain-of-function research?
On the advice of counsel, I respectfully decline to answer based upon my rights under the Fifth Amendment of the Constitution.
When we look at the research in China, the gain-of-function research that you've denied was gain-of-function, one of the things that startled the scientists when they saw COVID in the first couple of weeks was when they looked at the sequence of it, they said, oh my God, there's a furin cleavage site in it. And in this particular family of coronaviruses, the sarbecoviruses, they'd never seen this before. They were also startled to look at it and see how it was coded for, what the codons were, and to discover that the codons used out of 36 different possibilities turned out to be the one that was commonly used in gene manipulation by scientists. Dr. Fauci, were the scientists at the
Sorry, just sharing it on
Wuhan
X, everybody.
Institute of Virology capable of inserting a furin cleavage site into a coronavirus?
On the advice of counsel, I respectfully decline to answer based upon my rights under the Fifth Amendment of the Constitution.
I hate this. I hate this. I
So
hate
one
this.
of
I hate
the
this.
experiments that was pretty common was they would take the backbone of a SARS virus, and this would be a SARS virus that the backbone itself wasn't that dangerous, but then they would dig through guano, 300 feet underground, bat guano. They'd find other viruses, unknown viruses. They'd take the S protein off of an unknown virus and stick it on a backbone. And then they would infect mice that have humanized cells. And they were trying to discover if they could create a virus that infects humans. Now, many people would say, well, gosh, that doesn't sound like a really good idea to create viruses that don't
this is
exist
live,
in nature
folks.
to see if they'll
He's just
infect
pleading the
human
fifth.
cells.
Nothing is
What
happening.
if one escaped?
Again,
What if you
imagine
keep
that. Nothing
infecting
is
this into a
happening.
serial passage, you actually adapt
Nothing ever
the
happened.
virus to be infectious to humans. So the question is whether or not, Dr. Fauci, the Wuhan Institute of Virology was combining an S protein with one virus with the backbone of others, and could this lead to a virus, maybe it wasn't even predicted, but could it lead to viruses that gained in function and then could lead to a pandemic?
On the advice of counsel, I respectfully decline to answer based upon my rights under the Fifth Amendment of the Constitution.
One of the arguments that you and others have made against this virus coming from the lab is it couldn't have come from the viruses that have been published. And nobody's really arguing that. I think from the very beginning, people acknowledged that the viruses that have been published are too far evolutionarily distant from a virus that could have become COVID-19. But what has never been acknowledged by the side who tries to call the other side a conspiracy theory, which is really something you don't usually see in a scientific debate. This is the first time I've ever seen an
Nothing ever
article
happens.
printed in Lancet by your friends who called this a conspiracy theory. these are the kind of things you see as a screed on a political, website. You don't really see this in science. But when they release this as being a conspiracy theory, we're wondering that when you do this, when you combine these viruses and are able to grow them in humanized cells, whether or not this kind of risky research, whether you call it gain of function or not, whether you use the definition of gain of function, whether this kind of research should have had more scrutiny. I think in your House testimony, you testified that you never traveled to China and that you were unaware that anybody at NIH ever examined the labs, that you trusted the Chinese scientists. I think you said that even recently, that with your discretion, you trusted the Chinese scientists. The problem is that even in our country, we trust our scientists. They're good American scientists, probably doing the right thing for America. But at the same time, we oversight to make sure it's not dangerous research, but we also investigate the lab. I believe Fort Detrick was one of our main labs was closed down in the last year or two because of research institute, a research incident that was dangerous with dangerous pathogens. And so the American people would want to know, how could you approve this dangerous research in China, say that you trusted the Chinese scientists, and then in the end, you had to admit that you'd never been there, and none of your inspectors had ever been there. Dr. Fauci, had any of the labs where this dangerous research was occurring, were any American lab oversight or lab investigators, did they ever appear in these labs to make sure that they were safe labs?
On the advice of counsel, I respectfully decline to answer based upon my rights under the Fifth Amendment to the Constitution.
So one of the main theories for those who have looked at this being created in the lab was the idea that could have come from a virus not previously published. Dr. Fauci, are you aware?
I'm not
that
against
Dr. Shi,
Chet. I'm
who
not
worked for
against
the Wuhan
pleading the
Institute of
Fifth.
Virology.
Super important.
Was said to, and I think in her own words, to have over 100 viruses.
can't stand
that had not been
cowards.
previously published that could have been a close enough relative to create COVID-19. Are you aware of that?
There is no possible outcome that this
On
is
the advice
good.
of counsel, I respectfully decline
Without
to
him
answer
walking
based
out in
upon my
handcuffs.
rights under the Fifth Amendment to the Constitution.
And
Under your
I knew if he showed up, he
testimony
was gonna do this.
previously, when you denied
But-
ever having funded gain of function in China, it was so adamant as to.
Man,
to be
this man
striking,
murdered
to leave
people. I
no
just want
room
people
for
to be
any
very clear. This
interpretation
man
of what is or
murdered
isn't
people.
Gain of function research.
um,
But there's another
it's
important
very
question.
clear.
Did you fund gain of function
And he was
research in
pardoned
other biolabs around the world?
for everything. So he's pleading the Fifth because the only
On
crime
the
he can be
advice of
punished for
counsel, I
is
respectfully
perjury.
decline to answer based upon my rights under the Fifth Amendment to the Constitution.
The one research project that we do know you did fund.
only crime we could
is
get
the
it.
one that Ron
We could
Fauci
get him
did.
on.
And it's important to talk about because this sort of was the beginning of the debate over gain of function. And this wasn't just me. I wasn't even aware of the debate 10 years ago. This was other scientists. Over 200 scientists at the Cambridge Working Group signed a protest because they didn't think you should fund the research and they didn't think it should even be published because it was sort of a roadmap as to how to make a bioweapon. So what they did was the avian flu, and this is important. It may be the most important question we get to here today. The avian flu has about 50% mortality for humans. The good news, though, about animal viruses is
He's
they
not going to
don't
face
infect humans
justice.
very
It was
well.
never
It will
going to
infect
happen.
humans.
Nothing ever
It doesn't go
happens. The
human to
Senate is
human
a
very
farce,
well.
and the
Ron
Pauls are
Fauci, with
toothless
the money
tigers.
that you provided to him,
I don't know if I would say
did an
that Rand
experiment
Paul
where
is
he caused
toothless. I just don't
purposeful
think he has any
mutations
power to do
to
anything.
create
He
a
doesn't
new
have any
virus,
power
an
to do
avian flu
anything.
that didn't just infect birds well, but actually infected mammals well, went ferret to ferret in
If
an
there was a way that
aerosolized
Paul
manner.
could arrest Fauci
People
right
saw
now,
this and were aghast,
Paul would do it. I
at
just
the
don't think there is.
decision-making process that you decided to fund this. But this is when, the debate came about, and you wrote in support of this in the Washington Post, and you said, even if a scientist is bitten, even if a pandemic should occur, the knowledge is worth the risks. Do you still stand by that? Would you like to qualify at all whether or not the knowledge of gain of function is worth the risks, particularly in this case, since we now know 15 million people died worldwide?
Is there
Many
3D
people believe this
chess
came from the
happening
lab.
right
Do
here?
you
This is
think
my
that the
hope.
risks
4D
really are worth
chess?
the
Is there
benefits
4D chess?
for gain of function research?
Is somebody
On
going
the
to
advice
ask
of
questions
counsel,
and
I
pretend to be his
respectfully
friend
decline
and get him to
answer
commit perjury?
Based upon my rights under the Fifth Amendment to the Constitution.
All right. We're going to finish with this question. And it's based really on that statement, that general statement and your support for gain of function. The idea that the benefits outweigh the risks. So there are many other people who disagree. They aren't politicians, they're not, I don't know what party they're in. David Relman is probably one of the most esteemed. And
He's got Kenneth
he
Copeland
is a
eyes, doesn't he?
scientist at Stanford. He, I think, has classified clearance. He's been a consultant to our government probably for a decade or more. And he's written about this publicly. He says the
He's
opposite.
got Kenneth Copeland.
He said that the risks of this research do not outweigh the benefits. He said the risks, we shouldn't do it. Richard E. Bright, who's been involved in this debate for 2 decades, says the same thing. Says we really shouldn't be doing this at all. There's a quote also by Kevin
seriously.
Esfelt quote is that at the very end. Kevin Esfelt, who's a CRISPR scientist at MIT, also wrote about this gain of function. I implore every scientist, funder, and nation working in the field, please stop. No more trying to discover or make pandemic-capable viruses. No more experiments likely to disseminate blueprints for plagues. Dr. Fauci, would you like to at least answer this one question for us today and let us know whether or not you've changed your mind on whether or not the benefits of gain-of-function research outweigh the risks?
On the advice of counsel, I respectfully decline to answer based upon my rights under the Fifth Amendment to the Constitution.
The chairman has denied your assertion of privilege and directed you to answer.
This would
But
be
you
a messed
nonetheless
up
refuse
drinking
and
game
stand on
if
privilege
you took a
despite
shot every
the
time you
existence of
said
the
this,
pardon.
man.
The committee will
It's
have
too
to
early in the
consider
morning
after
for
this
that.
hearing what appropriate action should be taken against you for the failure to testify after being directed to do so. It's against the law to obstruct an investigation of Congress. There will be repercussions to your refusal to testify today. Senator Peters. You're not recognized. You're not recognized. If you are unruly, you will be removed from the proceeding. You are not recognized, and you are not recognized, sir. Sir, you are not recognized. You are not recognized. Security.
What'd he say?
We'll hold off. But you will respect these proceedings. You were told not to sit at the table. You insist on sitting at the table. And we told you you would not be recognized. You are not invited here for testimony, sir. You are being disruptive. Would you behave this way in a courtroom? No, because the judge would put you in jail. I can't do that today, but I can have you escorted from the premises. So I would say, sir, sit quietly and don't say another word.
Who is that dude?
I said, sit quietly. You are not recognized. Another word and you're gone.
Who is that?
So, Mr. Chairman, I'd like to hear what the attorney has to say.
He is not recognized by the committee or the chair. If he speaks again, he will be removed from the room. This testimony is from Anthony
drama.
Fauci. This is not a game with his lawyers. He can advise, his lawyers can give him advice. He's got a half dozen here. They're all allowed to talk to him.
Yes.
All right? But the attorneys are not recognized. In fact, the attorney was told not to sit at the table, and he's not obeying that recommendation. There's a row behind you, sir. That's where you were told to sit, and you're not. And now you're disrupting the proceedings. And so, look, this is the way Anthony Fauci wants to be remembered, for a lawyer not listening to the rules. That's the way you want to be remembered, and that's what you're going to do. You are not recognized, sir. Security, please remove him from the room.
Get him out!
Let the record state that Dr. Fauci will still have the advice of the other half a dozen attorneys that he brought along today. Senator Peters.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The COVID-19 pandemic is not the first or the last public health crisis to impact our nation. In December 2022, I released a report that identified significant failures in our federal government's preparedness and initial response to COVID-19. This report contained 17 key findings. It's a very large report, which I have right here. It contains 17 key findings and corresponding recommendations, including the need to invest in sustainable domestic manufacturing capabilities for critical medical supplies, build the infrastructure needed to surge testing capacity for infectious diseases, and robustly fund public health emergency preparedness and responses across all levels of government. Unfortunately, multiple administrations, including the current Trump administration, have failed to fund or to reform our health preparedness. This is
I think
something
that's the
that I
only
would hope
drama
the
we're
committee
going
in
to
the
get
future
today, to be honest.
would investigate. It needs to be taken a look at. It also feels like a new public health threat is hitting us every month. There's a foodborne parasite affecting thousands of people in Michigan and across the country, and our federal agencies still haven't fully pinned down the source of that outbreak. Measles cases in this country are at the highest they've been in 35 years. More children are getting sick and even hospitalized from this preventable disease. Over 1,000 people have died from the Ebola virus in Africa, and we don't know how widespread this crisis actually is. We have a hantavirus scare on a cruise ship, and though it hasn't made headlines in the way that the screwworm threatening our food security has, I remain concerned about bird flu that is also spreading and could one day cause a pandemic. This is also something this committee should be investigating and holding hearings on. Since January 2025, the Trump administration has taken a number of actions to drastically weaken our ability to fight infectious diseases and biological threats that endanger Americans. These actions are both incomprehensible and are also inexcusable. They include slashing funding for public health and infectious disease research, canceling contracts for cutting-edge vaccine technology, shutting agencies responsible for tackling infectious diseases around the world, firing thousands of federal employees for keeping our communities and our medicines and our food supply safe,
about the people that
and
died as a
injecting
result of
political
Fauci.
appointees in what should be non-political grant-making functions. That
I
is
think
something this committee should be looking
This
at.
is
I
a
could
great
go on. I could
example
go
of
on
our
all the topics that
system
we need to be
is
looking at
built in
moving
such a
forward
way
to
that it
protect this
protects
country.
powerful people.
We're not doing that in this committee. That's what
And,
this committee was designed
like
to do.
there
It's what it has
there
done
is
throughout
no
history.
justice in
It
this
has done it in a
country.
bipartisan way.
There is no
We
justice.
should get back to that and think about the future of this country and keeping this country safe.
Like at
When a
least Senator
crisis like
McCarthy,
COVID-19 strikes, we have an
like
obligation
we sought out the
to examine
communists
what went right
and tried
and
to
what went
expose
wrong
them
to provide
publicly. You know,
accountability for the American
I
people.
want to go back to those
Congress
days.
certainly has done that. Between the House and Senate,
Can we go
nearly
back to
20
those days?
different committees, 20 different committees, including
Where
this committee,
something
as I mentioned,
happened.
have conducted oversight of the COVID-19 pandemic, conducting transcribed interviews, holding dozens of hearings,
Holy
and released more
cow.
than 10 reports. Today's exercise, unfortunately, is a stark departure from those largely bipartisan, legitimate efforts. The chairman has shut the minority out of participating equally in these efforts, withheld information, selectively released documents, actions that completely undermine the credibility of this investigation. I will enter a record without objection, Mr. Chairman, a letter that I sent to you that detailed all of those areas that we have concern with and where we were shut out.
Without objection.
We'll provide
Nobody
other
cares.
details as well.
You know what would have been great, to be honest, if Rand Paul just real quick, if Rand Paul just had victims who died or who had family members die under COVID, and they just addressed Fauci. Like that's what should have happened. I think like that would have been, that would have been good content.
To understand that this is what they would have to go through as they
Maybe that'll
provide
still happen.
their
I would
advice
just
to
have
us.
people talk about
We're gonna
how
make
their
our
family members
nation
died
safer,
as a
and I
result of
hope that we
Fauci's
can
policies.
restore
And I would have
by
them talk
doing
to
these
Fauci
kinds of
directly.
activities. And I hope that we can restore our legitimate bipartisan oversight that's going to help strengthen our public health and pandemic preparedness and other homeland priorities. That's what this committee needs to focus on. It hasn't the last year and a half. Let's hope it does in the future. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Senator Johnson.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Dr. Fauci, I hope the American people listen very carefully to Chairman Paul's opening statement. I think it's a stunning indictment of the actions you've taken that have been so destructive to global health. I certainly understand why you needed a pardon. I certainly understand why, on the advice of counsel, you're not answering any questions, because I think it'd be almost impossible for you to answer the questions truthfully without really demonstrating what you did, your culpability, self-incriminating. We have, all of us has prepared a lot. I've been deluged with questions to ask Dr. Anthony Fauci. There are so many legitimate questions that deserve answers, and now you're not willing to provide those answers. So with my limited time, I'm going to talk about things that my investigation have revealed that have not been adequately answered and, quite honestly, haven't been adequately covered by the legacy media. I'll kind of combine the questions into kind of one, but you know, I certainly, let's put up the last COVID chart. I was warned pretty early on about the dangers of the experimental gene therapy.
I'm going to just jump to live. It doesn't look like we're live.
People had me on their shows. They would be censored by Facebook. They'd be deplatformed. I think largely at the behest of the actions you took to make sure that disinformation wasn't spread. This wasn't disinformation. This was the truth. So I was going to ask you whether you knew Dr. Marks. I think you do know him. He's the head of CBER. He's the man who is in charge of approving vaccines and surveilling for the safety. My investigation shows that on March 1st of 2021, less than 3 months after the emergency use authorizations, he was warned by Dr. Anna Scharsman, data mining expert, that the algorithm they were using to analyze VAERS data was going to hide in mass safety signals. 26 days later, and 3 months consecutively after that, they did data runs with a new algorithm that unmasked those safety signals. They showed dozens of safety signals, including sudden cardiac death, cerebral artery occlusion, basal ganglia stroke, agonal rhythm, Bell's palsy, and pulmonary infarction. Your diaries now show that you actually suffered
His hands
pulmonary infarction in, I think, probably June 2021. I was just wondering.
He knows.
It ever went through your mind
He knows. He screwed up.
that maybe that injection, all those
You could
boosters
see
you
on
took
the,
might
you could
have
see
caused
on his
that.
face, like,
And the question I was going to, and I'll ask this question: were you ever made aware
he
of the fact
knows.
that Peter Marks was warned that the algorithm was going to hide the safety signals? And were you told that senior FDA officials were given shown dozens of safety signals associated with the COVID injection?
on behalf of the
On the advice of counsel, I respectfully decline to answer based upon my rights under the Fifth Amendment to the Constitution.
Next area I want to go through is
we need to bring
that
back
same month of
throwing
March
tomatoes
2021,
and just
an employee at NIH,
he can plead the fifth,
Dr. Nath,
you can still throw
led a
tomatoes.
team of researchers who were diagnosing and treating individuals who'd never had COVID but were severely injured by the genetic therapy injections. Dr. Nath told those individuals, stay quiet. You know, we want to make sure that you know, we gather all the information and then release it to doctors so they can treat people like yourself. There was a concerted effort, and I'll enter this in the record. It appears inside NIH to quash Dr. Nath's publishing that study. It finally was put on a preprint server with telling no one, and I think about May of 2022. I think what's noteworthy about this is Dr. Nath told the injured participants that early treatment, early intervention was crucial for them to be treated. And yet within the NIH, they were questioning what was Dr. Nath doing. They didn't want to publish that because, and I want to take time searching for it, because publishing it would create vaccine hesitancy.
Why are they being mean to the science?
Time and time again is the reason they didn't promote they lied about the safety signals they were seeing. Throughout the pandemic, I always pushed early treatment. We've got things in here where, you were really concerned about
I would just humiliate him at this point. Like any way possible, I would just humiliate him. I would just make him sit there, and I would read the most embarrassing things from the diary.
It was retracted within 2 weeks because it was completely
with
false.
Photos
Totally
of people that died. I would just read him boasting about his body
and then
count.
when it comes to ivermectin,
Because
which, by the way,
the only thing you could do is embarrass
by
him.
so many people, I refer
But
to
he's
doctors
he's
actually
so
encouraging
arrogant.
compassion to
He has
treat
so much hubris.
vaccine-injured individuals.
He's so
works.
cocky. He's just a vile, vile
But I was
creature.
going to ask you whether you were involved in the
I
FDA
just think
attack on
embarrassment is all you have.
You had
at this
a
point.
interview on CNN on August 29th of 2021, where, again, I just don't want to take time to find the
Yeah,
exact quote.
if you happen to be
said there's
watching on
no
X,
evidence.
can you just hit the retweets?
There's no evidence that ivermectin
And nobody
is
retweets
helpful.
on X anymore.
On
It's
that
crazy.
exact same day, and I've got
Nobody
the-
retweets.
I've got
Nobody
the studies
shares.
right here. There was a website that was tracking the random controlled studies. Here they are, showing 60, 70% efficacy of ivermectin.
Yeah,
The
I
same
would
day you
I
say
would be
there's no
antagonizing
evidence,
him.
There was all kinds of evidence. Loved ones had to go to hospitals, had to sue hospitals. Just, would you try it? So I would want to know, to what extent were you involved in sabotaging hydroxychloroquine, ivermectin, and did you do that because you knew the only way you get an emergency use authorization for these drugs, these experimental gene therapy, was if there was no effective treatment, you couldn't get the emergency use authorization. So is that why you helped sabotage these cheap generic drugs in favor of remdesivir, which, by the way, nurses, are you aware of the fact that nurses called it run, death is near?
On the advice of counsel, I respectfully decline to answer based upon my rights under the Fifth Amendment to the Constitution.
But let me end on this note, because this just came to light. We've got 11 million pages of documents. We also have other people who were in the room. But now you actually lied to your own diary. On March 27, 2020, you wrote in your diary, "To my surprise yesterday, the POTUS sent a letter to governors outlining a plan to reopen county by county while monitoring the spread of virus in the low-risk counties. This was half-baked and never shown to Deb or I before it was sent out." So we have evidence that, in fact, you were fully aware of it and certainly approved it, if not authored it. So I was just simply asking you, is that true? Did you literally lie to your own diary? Did you know of that letter sent out to governors about reopening county by county?
Russell
Again,
Moore's probably
Mr. Chairman,
praying to his
I'd ask you
Fauci
to ask
candle right now.
The witness to just answer that one simple question.
On
Double
the advice
mask.
of counsel, I respectfully decline to answer based upon my rights under the Fifth Amendment to the Constitution.
Can I
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
just say these politicians are really terrible at creating drama and creating like they're really bad about aura farming and clipping. Like, they should be thinking in terms of clips. You're not going to get the guy to be arrested. So the goal should be how can we just embarrass this dude and make him so he's the least respected human being that walks the face of the planet, and everywhere he goes he has to cover his face in shame. and has to wear constant tomato protection from people throwing tomatoes as he walks through the city, like that. Like, but they like the congressmen need to think like streamers. They need to think. They need to think like, how can we get clips? How can we get clips? Because this is like, nobody cares about your monologues before a man who won't answer any question. Like, so you have to embarrass him.
More cases in the year and a half since Donald Trump has been president than were reported from 2000.
And why is being boring a prerequisite for getting elected into office and sitting on one of these committees? Like, why is boredom like the number one attribute?
Robert F. Kennedy Jr., the Secretary of Health and Human Services, and frankly, his entire administration. Thousands of people in the United States of America have been sickened by a foodborne parasite, and the outbreak is
Are we seriously
near under control.
Are we seriously
Staffing
talking
at the
about
FDA and other critical public health entities has been slashed.
I know she's
by
not
Russell
talking about
Vogt
explosive diarrhea
and
right
Elon
now.
Musk. Last year, the National Institutes of Health awarded 201 fewer grants compared to the previous years. 207, I am corrected, compared to previous years. As those grants were either canceled or delays, especially at the beginning of the Trump administration, I can tell my colleagues what the impact was on people in New Hampshire, on scientists in New Hampshire, on clinical trials in New Hampshire, where people's cancer treatment was interrupted because Elon Musk and Russell Vogt know better, they say, than the people at NIH about what to fund. And
Yo, her staff hates her. Her staff hates her, giving her talk about explosive diarrhea as like the real pandemic, like that.
how to better engage
Her
people
staff
who need
hates her
healthcare
guts.
in rural America, that was off the table. America is losing researchers and scientists to other countries because researchers and scientists, highly trained, highly qualified, invested in often by the American taxpayer, are finding the hostility from this administration so strong that it interferes with their science, and they want to pursue science wherever that science takes them. I also sit on the Health, Education, Labor, and Pensions Committee. We have had a number of hearings with nominees recently to fill critical spots. One of those nominees is Dr. Erica Schwartz, a brilliant woman, medical degree, biomedical engineering degree. I think she also told us she has a law degree and a master's in public health. She was a 2-star admiral in the United States Navy, an experienced doctor. And yet, when I asked her if she would push back at Secretary Kennedy, if he instructed her to suspend the promotion of the flu vaccine as he did some point in the last few months, there's an email to prove it, she couldn't answer that question. She either could not, would not, or had been bullied into evading a question about whether she, as the director of CDC, would stand up to Secretary Kennedy, the most unqualified Secretary of Health and Human Services this country has ever seen, and more than unqualified, somebody who pursues conspiracy theories, degrades people with disabilities, and continues to promote disproved science. That's the state of healthcare and public health.
There's people
in this
that voted
country
for
right
this
now,
woman,
not
you know
to
that?
mention the $1 trillion
Like there's
or so
actually
of
people
cuts
that
to the
live in this
Medicaid
country
program that is
that
decimating
thought
healthcare
she'd
in
be a
my
great
state
fit.
and decimating it around the country, not to
Is she from New
mention
Hampshire?
the refusal
Psychotic.
of my colleagues and this
did it?
administration to
Who voted for
extend
this woman?
critical tax cuts for people who are trying to afford insurance on the Affordable Care Act. I just was at one of my community health clinics, and they are reporting fewer and fewer people coming in for care.
No, we just passed
Disrupting
100
care
views on X.
because they can no longer afford health insurance. And that is
I-
impacting, of
that's-
course, the
that's
revenue
not-
stream to the community.
that's not
health
live
clinic,
viewers,
their
by the
ability
way.
to hire
That's-
and pay people,
that's
their
just
ability to take care
total.
of their community.
X is doing great right now.
That's
Thanks for
what
asking.
I wish we were having hearings about in this committee and in the Health Committee. That's what I wish we were trying to address in a bipartisan way. But
She looks like she could be
instead,
Fauci's
we are
sister, doesn't
here
she?
in an attempt to entrap you.
No,
Because
we're not trying to
you have
entrap
a
him. We're trying to
distinguished
arrest
career
him.
Trying to put Americans'
We want him in
public health
prison.
first.
That's not entrapment.
With that,
We actually want him in jail.
Senator Lankford.
Entrapment would be
Chairman,
clip
thank you.
farming and aura farming, which you guys are terrible
Fauci,
at.
thanks for coming today.
We just
I
want
know
him
you're
in
invoking
prison.
Your Fifth Amendment right, which you have the right to be able to do constitutionally. But thanks for coming.
He's gonna
and
write
be a
about
part
you
of
in the
this.
diary. Don't
There are
worry
a lot of
about it.
issues and a lot of questions
She
that
just
have
got
come
her
up,
diary
and
note.
Hopefully, in some day in the future, we'll be able to get all this clarity to be able to pull together. There were over 1 million Americans that died from COVID. You know that well. You were tracking the numbers literally every single day. Those affected and those that died from the earliest days. There are a lot of lessons that we've got to learn from this, that we should put into history to be able to determine what happens in the future. How do we respond in the future? How do we deal with something like this again?
Yo, I wish
It was uncharted
C-SPAN would
territory
update
for
the
everyone.
lower thirds.
But I would tell you, countless families, including my own, watched a loved one die behind glass or through a screen because we couldn't get access to them. Children couldn't get to school.
There we go.
People
I'm
missed their
talking about the people
prom
that died.
or
only way.
graduation ceremonies. There were lots of things that happened that dramatically changed the future of the country. The mental health issues that we have continued to deal with from the isolation have been profound. Even something as simple as children that wore masks or were around adults wearing masks for all that time are slower in learning language now because they couldn't watch someone's lips moving, and so they're slower in that. Amazingly enough, churches and places of worship were forced to be closed down. There were even churches that met where the pastor preached in the parking lot and the congregants all met in their cars with windows up, and police came and scattered them and said, "You can't be here." The simple act of social distancing became an issue. As everyone guessed, what's the right distance to be away from someone else? Literacy rates have declined. All these things are results, not to mention the loss of lives and the health experiences that have been out there for many Americans. So there are legitimate questions.
It's a great
I wanted to be
example
able
of
to
saying
raise some of
something
those to be able
important
to
in the
walk
most
through some
boring
of this.
possible way.
Because it has been very, very challenging. As we've gone through some of your notes and your diary and other things that are out there, we're trying to be able to pull bits and pieces of things to be able to learn lessons. On May the 6th, 2020, you wrote at that time, I had a conversation with Robert Redfield, who, as you know well, was then the director of CDC, about the fact that greater than 1 million children worldwide have missed their measles vaccination because of the shutdown. You stated, this is terrible and needs to be addressed, since on that basis alone, there would be far more excess deaths from measles among children than coronavirus deaths among children. I need to bring this up to the TF, the task force. Did you ever have an opportunity to bring up the potential of measles deaths among children and an infection rate going around the world from measles based on the fact that so many children would not get their measles vaccine because of the shutdown?
I'm sorry, Senator, but on the advice of counsel, I respectfully
did-
decline to answer based upon my rights under the Fifth Amendment to the Constitution.
That is your right to do.
This
One of the
guy
big
is
issues
so
that's really coming
boring.
up is on the lab issue. This was greatly discussed about whether this came from a lab or whether this came from nature. There are obvious issues and differences between the two to be able to know this. You had a lot of conversation on this. Scientists around the world were in conversation on this. There were different statements that you even made in your private notes and your public notes on it.
in January the 26th of 2020, this is before we had our first tragic death of coronavirus in the United States, you wrote, "It now appears using EpiData that the genomic data, the first infection was in early December and was not connected to the market," which was the big rumor that was out there, was this wet market in China. "We know the market was not the source, it was the amplifier."
How do people that
January the
speak at the
31st, you wrote
exact
about a phone
same
call. You wrote
tone
the people on the phone
get elected?
on the phone felt the mutations
How's
around
that
the furin
possible?
cleavage site of the spike protein could not have occurred naturally, since it would require an evolutionary jump that they found nowhere in bat isolates. They bring up the possibility this could have been deliberately inserted and either accidentally released or deliberately released by a crazy person in the lab, the former being the most likely. February the 1st, same year, 2020. This is, again, still before our first death. There was not total agreement about the likelihood of deliberate insertion. Ron
Oh,
said
thanks
he
to all
was-
y'all that
he
are
was sure
engaging
that
in the
this could
chat
occur
and keeping me
naturally, and we should
awake.
not waste our time and divert our effort to pursue this.
It's
This is
sick.
expected
I
of him,
woke
since
up
he
at
was the original
5:30
gain of
a.m.
function person with Yoshi.
It's
Also,
5:30
Christian
a.m. on
was
the West
with
Coast.
Ron. The rest felt deliberate insertion was possible, and given
Your
the fact that
chats
Dr.
give me
Xing Shi at
energy.
the University of Wuhan has been working for years in gain of function in coronaviruses
Is that engagement
to allow
baiting?
adaptation of the spike
Can you
protein
be
to
suspended
bind
on
to
that
the human ACE2
for asking
receptor,
people to
we could not let this
engage in
go.
the chat?
That's a remarkable statement for February the 1st of 2020.
No, I have no idea what works on Exit.
When there hadn't even been the first death here, but we knew something was moving. You knew well that something was moving. You identified February the 1st before any of us had ever heard of the Wuhan lab. Not only the Wuhan lab in the conversation, but literally the scientist that you named in your own notes, the lead scientist that was there. It's interesting to me on that. And the questions I was going to ask you was just your background and knowledge about the Wuhan lab and Dr. Shi and all the details. I'm aware of where you have been on trying to be able to plead your Fifth Amendment right, which is your right to be able to do. But I also want to be able to find out some facts to be able to help us for the future on this. The Lawrence Livermore National
That'll make them
Laboratory
answer a question.
in May of 2020
Good job.
put out
That'll
a
do it.
classified document that has only been recently unclassified on this, that had this statement: "We assess all the necessary conditions for an accidental release of a laboratory-modified coronavirus."
Yeah,
specifically a
that's
coronavirus
exactly
adapted to
right, man. You
recognize
got to
human
say
cell
something to get
receptors
them to
were
lash out,
present at the
because
Chinese Wuhan Institute of Virology in mid to late 2019.
you got
Now,
to you got to
the
make this
question that I have for you
dude
is,
like
this is May the 27th
crash
of
out.
2020.
You need to
This is
make
the
Fauci
report that
crash
most
out.
people will see.
Can
is
I
this.
can I just
I have.
can
I
I
have
can I say what I would do? He's talking about classified documents.
My
Hold on.
concern is, were you given the ability to see this document unredacted based on your position? Were you able to see this and to be able to get this information? I could see it, and I know what's here. Everybody else just has their conclusion at the beginning of it, not this. My question to you was going to be, did
He's
you
not
have
gonna answer
access?
that
Because it's
question.
important for the future that people in your
That's not going to
position
make him answer a question.
do have access to this kind of information and insight. Is there any way you could answer that question? Were you able to give access to this data?
On the advice of counsel, I respect.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Okay. So you have to treat this. You have to make him crash out. Like, you have to go for his ego. You have to humble him. You have to embarrass him. You have to make him feel insanely tiny and small. You have to compare him to Hitler. Like that, I would compare him to Hitler. The reason I would compare him to Hitler is because it would probably make him so mad that he would scream out. You have to rage bait you have to rage bait Fauci. Do you guys understand? Like, you have to rage bait this man. You have to get clips, and he needs to be rage baited into embarrassment and public ridicule for the rest of his life. Like, that's exactly what needs to happen. And these sort of boring, dry, monotone sort of, like, this guy needs a speaking coach, because he is the most boring sounding
including
voice
their
I've ever
health
heard in my life.
records, what happened to, or even all the sequencing that they had done in advance. For the future of our research and our cooperation with.
Here's what I would do. I'm sorry to interrupt. I hope I have something more interesting to say than this guy. But what I would do is I would compile a video, a well-edited, well-produced video of families all over the country holding up photos of the people that died as a result of Anthony Fauci, and have regular citizens all over the country directly in the video let them know that Fauci killed my loved ones. And I would play that video for him and make him have to watch it. And look, here's the thing. He might not even watch it. He might put his head down and not watch it. And that's great too. Give the body language TikTok months of content. Like, just like, that's like, this is like, these people don't think, like, I don't know what good they think this is going to do, but it's not going to wind up in such a way that Fauci is either embarrassed or in handcuffs at the end of the day. It's a complete waste of time. It's just all ego. It's all ego for the congressman.
From people, and we can be guaranteed that we're going to.
You got to rage bait him and get him to crash out.
Yes, sir.
On the advice of counsel, I respectfully decline to answer based upon my rights under the Fifth Amendment to the Constitution.
I yield back.
Senator Blumenthal.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I want to go back to the dark days of the coronavirus pandemic, one of the darkest days or times in our history. Hospitals were overflowing. Navy medical ships were docked in the Hudson River. Emergency rooms were forced into unprecedented triaging during the worst week of the pandemic, which happens to have been the last week of President Trump's first term. More than 25,000 Americans died of COVID-19. Easy to forget those dark days. But for the past 18 months, the Trump administration has been engaged in a campaign to rewrite this history. And today's proceeding, I fear, is part of that effort, one of the darkest days in our Senate's history. The Trump administration has launched a baseless set of smears against vaccines that help pull us out of that public health crisis, vaccines that are undoubtedly President Trump's greatest accomplishment. It has slashed funding to local public health departments that were on the front lines of the pandemic, and those healthcare workers are heroes. It has disparaged those heroes as woke or wasteful. And it has used a politicized Department of Justice
Holy
to
cow.
target the researchers who helped us track and understand the novel virus. Today's hearing is another page in that playbook, sadly, tragically. Dr. Fauci, you've spent 5 decades in public service, including nearly 4 decades in leadership at the National Institutes of Health.
Legally speaking, he may plead the fifth, but his silence will be an indictment in the eyes of the people because of the evidence published against him. Yeah. Oh, I think everybody knows Fauci's a fraud at this point.
Real life results saving human lives. Put aside all the flowery rhetoric that we hear in the United States Senate.
You guys got Kenneth
Dr.
Copeland
Fauci
eyes as
has
well,
saved
doesn't he?
lives, as have public health officials in the United States and throughout the world. And today, we are demeaning and degrading their life-saving service. Republicans are eager to rebrand you as a villain in order to distract from their own failure to protect Americans from soaring health care costs. They've been rising astronomically in the last couple of years. And from unsafe food.
Oh, yeah. Unsafe food.
Cyclospora to spread.
Can we stop talking about the explosive
As a
diarrhea?
result of the
Can we stop?
anti-vaccine
Who
policy.
is telling these congressmen to talk about
This
explosive
hearing is the
diarrhea?
culmination of
It's
a
not the same
years-long
thing as
crusade that
COVID.
started more
This
than
is
6
ridiculous.
years ago when Dr. Fauci
You guys
dared
are insane
contradict
people.
President Trump.
Holy cow. Stop talking about
The
explosive
campaign to
diarrhea.
vilify you, Dr. Fauci, is just one part of this larger campaign.
If you're going to talk about
against
explosive
science
diarrhea, at least say explosive
facts,
diarrhea.
anything
Don't
that has
use
made
the medical
Americans
term. It's not as
less sick.
fun.
It is shameful that in a country like ours, a dedicated public service like Dr. Fauci has experienced persistent threats to his life.
Yo, I cannot
since the
wait. Look, I
pandemic
cannot wait.
because of
I'm
the
gonna tell
lies
you.
that are told about him.
I cannot wait until like professional streamers like age up and and they're in their 40s and 50s. They're in 20s now, but they're going to be in their 40s and 50s, and they're going to run for office and they're going to win, and they're not going to put on these boring presentations. Maybe that's what we need. We need like Kai Cenat to run for office.
It is a right. And I would ask that this letter from David
Holy
Shurtleff
cow.
and Danny Onato be made a part of the record if there's
Without
no objection.
objection.
Hey, yo, vote for me for Congress, and I will IRL stream every day as a congressman. That'd be, dude, I'd vote. I'd vote. I'd vote.
Help protect his client's rights. And I would ask that that statement be made part of the record as well, Mr. Chairman.
Without objection.
Let's be very clear. The Fifth Amendment is a right of everyone appearing before an authority like this one. It should be respected. And the reason that Dr. Fauci has
Do these Democrats say, for real, do these Democrats say that the Fifth Amendment should be respected when a Republican or conservative does it? No, they don't. No, they don't. They don't. They don't.
during and after the COVID-19 pandemic, Dr. Fauci
I hate
appeared
this.
at least a dozen times for congressional hearings in the Senate alone in answer to questions about the very issues on which you purport to seek information. He has been thoroughly transparent and consistent in providing factual information to Congress, and he is deeply familiar with the processes and protocols of sharing information with the legislative branch. And then referring to the chairman, this years-long public crusade against Dr. Fauci makes one thing clear. This is not a serious effort to seek information from Dr. Fauci in a transcribed interview for a valid legislative purpose. You are single-mindedly fixated on Dr. Fauci, seeing Dr. Fauci prosecuted for imaginary crimes, and you are so invested in that outcome.
How does he say
that
this in
you
the
have
most boring
created
way
a personal
possible?
Brand around it. Those are the words of his attorney. And he cites as well the statements of the chairman, which indicate a clear intent that the result of this proceeding be a prosecution. Quote,
I hate this. You know what? Maybe look. Okay,
power of
I'm
some of
sorry.
us must be-
It's too early in the morning. It's so early in the morning. I think there needs to be a new category of political streaming commentary from people who hate the mundane, stupid nature of politics. Just like normal people, like me, who know nothing or care nothing about the political battles and all of that, but just like basically like the assumption should be every political thing should be like an IRL stream, and then you just coach politicians on how to clip farm like that. That is, because this is so boring and so much nonsense, and I cannot believe that they compared COVID to explosive diarrhea. It's unbelievable, the absurdity of that, and shame on each of the ones that brought up explosive diarrhea. When you have Dr. Anthony Fauci, the chief Hitler of of medicine, like unbelievable. I hate this so much. This looks so bad on our country, that you have a man that murdered as many people as he did, and he was pardoned by a robot pen, and for everything, any possible thing he might have done, he was pardoned for. It's absolutely disgusting and repulsive, and I hope you hate it. I hope you hate it as much as I do.
kinds of steps that were taken to counter it. about the need for more preparation.
And we don't hate
They
it
should
enough.
certainly be addressed, but not in a show trial.
It is a show trial. You got that right. This is definitely a show trial because it's not. No one's walking out of here in handcuffs.
And unfortunately, I fear that is what we are seeing today. America deserves better. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Well, that they
In
do.
no courtroom in America can you have your witness plead the Fifth Amendment, then your attorney gets to testify. That's what that letter is. The attorney's complaining and testifying, saying, he didn't do it, the prosecution's unfair. You don't get to do that. That's one thing you give up when you take the Fifth Amendment. You say, I'm not going to testify. I'm not going to give you any information. You don't then get to put.
I thought I heard something. Sorry. Hold on.
Not invited to testify, and he was out of order, and it was appropriate to have him injected. Senator.
Chairman Paul, thank you for doing this. I think, I know in my state, people have been asking questions about Dr. Fauci for years. So Dr. Fauci, your entry has made clear that you love being a hero, a celebrity, and here having the eyes of the world upon you. You loved every newspaper profile, every photo shoot, every fancy dinner with the elites.
Here we
To
go.
many
Here we
Americans who
go.
lost
Start
family
talking about his
members, who
ego.
lost trust in our federal government. You're not a hero. Unfortunately, you're a villain. You made yourself the story and abandoned the American people to serve your own ego.
Of course, he's from Florida.
To begin, I would like to talk about your relationship with David Morenz. He was the senior advisor in the NIAID, Office of the Director, your office, for 16 years. He was your friend. He was a frequent guest at your house. You reportedly co-authored over 50 scientific articles with him. You turned to him first right after COVID-19 first occurred.
Yeah, we're definitely not a serious
Earlier
country.
this year, the Department of Justice charged him with conspiracy against the United States, in addition to other charges as part of a conspiracy to conceal information and falsify records to suppress alternative theories about the origins of COVID-19. Now, you've publicly kicked this man to the curb, saying, Dr. Morenz was not an advisor to me on institute policy or other substantive issues. So let's start with the use of personal Gmail accounts. And
Y'all,
Dave
if you're
Moren's
watching
relationship
this, if
with
you could
Peter
just
Daszak.
share it, I'd really appreciate it.
Dave Morenz tells
And
Peter
I
Daszak,
know that-
president of Equal
I know that's
Alliance, and
engagement
you've got this
baiting.
in front of you. It's Exhibit 1.
But I need the
It's
views.
already in the record as part of this. It says, quote,
I need
"P.S.
the views. And
I forgot to say that
and you can
there's
tip me
no
on X
worry
Money now
about
too if you
FOIA.
got an X Money
I can either
account.
send stuff to Tony
I'm
on his
trying to make
private
this a
Gmail
little bit
or
more
hand it to him at work or at his
entertaining than it
house.
is.
He is too
'Cause it's
smart to let colleagues
awful.
send him
This is
stuff
awful
that could
entertainment.
cause trouble. Dr. Fauci, did Dr. Moren's relationship with Peter Daszak concern you? Yes or no?
On the
On
advice
behalf-
of counsel, I respectfully decline to answer based upon my rights under the Fifth Amendment to the Constitution.
Did Dave Morenz ever bring documents to your house?
On the advice of counsel, I respectfully decline to answer based upon my rights under the Fifth Amendment to the Constitution.
Did you ever receive a text about your work at NIAID to your personal cell phone?
On the advice of counsel, I respectfully decline to answer based upon my rights under the Fifth Amendment to the Constitution.
Did any text about your work at NID that went to your personal cell phone ever become part of federal records?
On the advice of counsel, I respectfully decline to answer based upon my rights under the Fifth Amendment to the Constitution.
Did you maintain
Thanks
a
for
personal email
reposting New
account while serving
Mexico
as
Free
director?
Thinker.
On the advice of counsel, I respectfully decline to answer based upon my rights under the Fifth Amendment to the Constitution.
Did you ever receive work-related communications on that
I
Gmail
wouldn't.
account
I
from
wouldn't
David
ask him these
Morenz?
questions. I wouldn't. I wouldn't
On the
ask him these
advice of
questions.
counsel, I
I would
respectfully
embarrass the heck out of
decline
him,
to
and
answer based
I
upon
would.
my
I would figure
rights
out how to
under the
rage
Fifth
bait him.
Amendment to
I
the
would make fun of his
Constitution.
ears.
Did you preserve any work-related communications on that
I would
Gmail
make fun of
account
his
from David
ears.
Morenz?
I'd make fun
On
of
the advice of counsel, I respectfully decline
the
to answer
absolute
based upon my
bland
rights
gray
under the
suit
Fifth
he's
Amendment to
wearing.
the Constitution.
Did Dave Morenz ever provide you with documents
The
outside of
monochrome.
those two ways that would violate NIH policy for
monochrome
FOIA
suit he's wearing.
compliance?
Make fun of it. I would just rage bait
On the
him.
advice of counsel, I respectfully decline to answer based upon my rights under the Fifth Amendment to the Constitution.
Now let's look at two other communications. You emailed Dave Morenz on January 26, 2020, quote, "It is important that I speak with you tonight. Please call me at home." This is the part of Exhibit 2 that you have in front of you. This email is sent the same day, the exact same day you write in an internal document, quote, Now we know the market was not the source, it was the amplifier, unquote. Would you call the origins of COVID-19 a substantive issue?
On the advice of counsel, I respectfully decline to answer based upon my rights under the Fifth Amendment to the Constitution.
Did you discuss COVID-19 origins with Demorans on this phone call?
Yo,
On the advice of counsel,
why are the
I respectfully
YouTube
decline to
comments?
answer based upon my rights
those are
under
older
the Fifth
YouTube
Amendment to the
comments.
Constitution.
right?
Now, let's
Yeah,
take
why
a
are my
closer look
YouTube
at the last
comments
time you
not showing
testified
up?
before Congress. This is part of what you have in front of you is Exhibit 4, which is part of the record. In June 2024, you testified to Dr. Moran's, quote, was not an advisor to
Maybe
me
I
on
need to-
institute policy or other substantive issues. Furthermore, his office is located in a different building from that of the NIAID director, unquote. Is that still your testimony today?
On the advice of counsel, I respectfully decline to answer based upon my rights under the Fifth Amendment to the Constitution.
So today, under oath, your testimony remains that Dr. Morans was not an advisor to you on institute policy or substantive matters.
On the advice of counsel, I respectfully decline to answer based upon my rights under the Fifth Amendment to the Constitution.
Now, I've got Exhibit 5, which you have in front of you. On October 24, 2021, David Morans texted you to provide information about and advocate for the controversial EcoHealth Alliance grant. You thank him and tell him you will check the information. Would you agree that this shows an advisory relationship between David Morans and yourself?
On the advice of counsel,
Yeah, the
I
chat keeps
respectfully
freezing for
decline
some
to
reason.
answer based upon my rights under the Fifth Amendment to the Constitution.
Would you
On
agree
YouTube
that you two
anyway.
were
It's working on
discussing
X.
substantive
Works
issues?
on X pretty good.
On the advice of counsel, I respectfully decline to answer based upon my rights under the Fifth Amendment to the Constitution.
If documentary evidence establishes that Dr. Morans advised you regarding EcoHealth Alliance, COVID origins, or grant policy, then your June 2024 testimony would have been inaccurate, correct?
On the advice of counsel, I respectfully decline to answer based upon my rights under the Fifth Amendment to the Constitution.
Is there any document in your possession today?
Can you
that
arrest
would
him for
contradict
pleading the
your prior
Fifth if he's
congressional
pardoned?
testimony?
On the
I
advice
guess
of
he doesn't want to
counsel,
do
I
perjury,
respectfully
which he's
decline
not
to
pardoned
answer Based
for.
upon my rights under the Fifth Amendment to the
So I
Constitution.
guess
Have
not.
you deleted, destroyed, or instructed anyone to destroy records after learning Congress is investigating
Did
these
he?
matters?
Did he park in an illegal
On the
parking
advice
spot?
of
Is there
counsel, I
anything we can
respectfully
arrest him
decline
for?
to answer based upon my
Is
rights
there
under the
anything?
Fifth Amendment to the Constitution.
Are you aware of anyone who did?
There's no way Dr. Anthony
On the
Fauci
advice
is
of
squeaky
counsel,
clean.
I
There's no
respectfully
way.
decline to answer based upon my rights under the Fifth Amendment to the Constitution.
There's no way.
As you know, Dr. Morans now
He's
faces
gotta have
charges
some, like,
related to
unpaid parking
destroying
tickets.
records while you distance yourself from him. Is that fair to a decades-long friend?
On the advice of counsel, I respectfully decline
Yo.
to answer based upon my rights under the Fifth Amendment to the Constitution.
When is the last time you spoke to him?
On the advice of counsel, I respectfully decline to answer based upon my rights under the Fifth Amendment to the Constitution.
In hindsight, are you disappointed how you handled COVID? Do you have any regrets?
On the advice of counsel, I respectfully decline to answer based upon my rights under the Fifth Amendment to the Constitution.
I'm gonna try to
Dr.
fix
Fauci,
my
I wanna close
restream
with
chat,
this.
guys, while he's pleading the
Here's how it
Fifth.
impacted my family and people close to me. I have daughters with children. You can't imagine the questions they had around vaccines for their kids and themselves, and the pressure, the unbelievable pressure to make the right decision for their health. I can tell you pregnant women who worked with me were so scared because every time they went to the doctor, they were told something different about taking the vaccine. And you caused this. Imagine being a mom trying to protect their kids, or an expectant mother trying to figure out what to do. Every 3 weeks, a doctor tells you a new set of guidance on a vaccine. The haphazard information you released and pushed on the American people with little research is appalling, and why there's so much distrust in our institutions today. That trust is crucial to public health, and you, more than any person or event in my lifetime, have destroyed that trust for millions of Americans. You lied to hundreds of millions of people amid the worst public health crisis in a century. You failed to follow your own guidance. You forced people to watch their loved ones die alone over the phone. It's disgusting. You destroyed the federal government's credibility when it comes to public health. We have entire
hoping that
generations
fixes
of
the
Americans who,
chat.
rightfully so, do not trust our institution to keep people safe because of you. This has destroyed decades of progress and lifetimes of work because you wanted to fuel your own ego and be the center of attention. What would you do differently knowing what you know today, Dr. Fauci?
On the advice of counsel, I respectfully decline to answer based upon my rights under the Fifth
You
Amendment.
guys
to
are
the
going to have to chat to
Constitution.
let me know
All
if
the
that
evidence
fixed
is right
it.
here, and you still can't bring yourself to tell the truth or apologize because you received an auto-pin pardon from a staffer in the Biden White House. If we have another pandemic
think it
tomorrow,
did.
millions could die because of what you did to make Americans lose trust in their government when it comes to medicine and health care. How many families have you apologized to had to watch their loved ones die alone? You breached public trust, and now you're hiding behind a fraudulent pardon. Your legacy will not be as a man that saved America from COVID, but as a man who destroyed the public trust in America's public health institutions in exchange for 5 minutes of fame. This is how history will remember you. I yield back.
Senator Kim.
Thank you, Dr. Fauci, for coming on out in front of this committee. I know it's not what you would want.
Yeah,
It's
it is
not
what it is.
you deserve. I just want to say,
It is what
and
it
start
is.
by just
The
saying
chat.
thank you to you for your service to this nation.
Thank you for your
I
service.
didn't know much
This-
about you prior to the pandemic. I came to learn about you from how many Americans did, but I also had the opportunity to talk to you and engage with you as someone who is a member of the Select Committee on the Coronavirus Crisis over in the House of Representatives. When I learned about your background, 38 years as the director of the National Institute of Allergy and Infectious Disease, appointed by President Reagan.
This guy's
served under
this guy's
7
looking for a
presidents,
job.
4 Republicans and 3 Democrats. I admire that greatly. I myself had a chance to serve in the executive branch, serve in government under both a Republican president and a Democratic president. And I believe that we need more of that type of work, a place where we can understand our jobs not as coming from a place of partisanship and politics, but that of just public service. And right now, I feel the hyperpartisanship growing in this country in dangerous ways. I feel it much more present here on the Hill than I did back when I served as a nonpartisan career public servant at the State Department.
Thanks, New Mexico Free Thinker.
And I worry
Looks all right.
I worry about what kind of trajectory we're on as a country and what this causes when it comes next for public service and those willing to step up for our nation. And it's not just in the attacks, but we see it brought out with the cuts to funding, to the firing of federal workers, to the demonization of their motivations, people calling our public servants criminals, thinking that they are there solely to undermine others that are trying to engage. And I look at it right now. You know, it's not just that the people are being attacked, our public servants being attacked, but that it's undermining the very nature of the work of governance. You know, these cuts to HHS funding, to NIH funding,
Who
to
is
the
this?
grants, cuts to the researchers
this
doing the critical
kid?
work to find cures and medicines. These firing and these cuts, they're creating a chilling effect, honestly, a chilling effect for the next generation of people who might consider stepping up to serve our nation, to be the next generation of researchers who now are wondering whether or not this is the right thing for them to do at a time when they
It's
see
not the right thing
some of their
to do.
colleagues or those
Join
that
the
they
private
looked up to
sector if you
being
want to save help.
attacked, their funding
outta
being
here.
cut. Researchers that
Cut
I
it all.
talked to who are now either leaving the country or considering leaving the country to do their work because of the sheer unpredictability of America. That this nation so great, so powerful, has now been crippled with this sense of unpredictability and unreliability. That is not the type of country that I hope we strive to be. I raise this because these attacks upon
This
Dr.
is the
Fauci,
most.
it's not
This is
just
like the
about
most
him.
pathetic.
It's sending signals to others who are thinking about serving our country, our scientists, our doctors, our healthcare
is the most
professionals, our
pathetic-
researchers. Trying to show to them
Simp-
that if
it's
you
like
don't get in
simp-
line
he-
with
it's
the
like he's
politics, that
simping
you
for
will
Dr. Anthony Fauci right
also
now.
potentially be subject to attack.
Like he's totally like
And from the
like
work
if
that
Dr.
he
Fauci
has done
live
from
streamed,
HIV/AIDS
this
to
guy
Ebola
right
to
here would be
COVID,
sending
we've
thousands of
seen
dollars a
him
month to
try to
Fauci's
engage
chat.
in these crises. They're not easy. Especially when it's a
For
novel
real.
disease, when you don't know what comes next, a lot of unknowns, having to make decisions without the full breadth of knowledge we always wish we had.
He'd be
in
Dr.
hindsight.
Fauci's whale.
There is nothing perfect, no perfect clarity when it comes to pandemics, when it comes to crises. I worked in national security and wars and crises. I made judgment calls, gave my best advice to generals, to
Just read my
ambassadors,
super chat,
even to a
Dr.
president.
Fauci.
Did I get
I
it
want
all
you to
right?
know.
No. Did I do my best? I did everything I thought I could. With
They
the
want to.
information
They
that I
want to
had.
talk about explosive diarrhea in New Mexico
Public
Free
servants,
Thinker.
they
That's
do
all
this
they've been
work
talking about is
because they
explosive
love this
diarrhea.
country, and
And
that
the
they
reason
strive to improve
Doc,
it.
the hatred of
an
Dr.
easy job,
Fauci
but it is
has given
because there is
cuts
so
to
much
the
at stake
National
in our
Institute of Health
country.
and resulted in
But these
explosive
public servants
diarrhea.
do it
That's their
because they
message.
are in
That's the
arena.
message of the Democrats today.
I just want to end by just
That
reading
and
a
Dr.
portion of
Fauci
this
is
because I think it's
amazing,
important as we're
and
thinking
we should all
about
bow down and
how to
worship
be able to
him for his
treat public
greatness and
servants in
medical
this country,
knowledge.
to think through this. And in the words of Teddy
This
Roosevelt
guy's about to
saying, "It's
cry
not
in the
critic
presence
who
of Dr.
counts,
Fauci. Have
not
you ever
the
seen
man who
anybody like
points out
this?
how the strong man
He's about to
stumbles,
cry.
or where the doer of deeds could have done them better. The credit belongs to the man who is actually in the arena.
I hate
Whose
this.
face is marred by dust and
I
sweat
hate
and
our
blood,
country.
who strive
Justice
valiantly,
is
who
just
errs
these
but
show
comes
trials.
short
I hate
again
it so
and
much.
again, who spends himself in a worthy cause, who at the best knows in the end the triumphs of high achievement, and who at the worst, if he fails, at least he fails while daring greatly, so that his place shall never be with those cold and timid souls who neither know victory nor defeat. Thank you for your service, Dr. Fauci. I yield back.
Senator Alling.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Here we go.
Well,
Here we
nothing
go.
says honesty like taking the fifth, huh, Doc? Let's try something. What day of the week is it today?
On the advice of counsel, I respectfully decline to answer
Yes!
based upon my rights under the Fifth
Holy
Amendment to the
clip farming!
Constitution.
What color tie are you wearing?
On the advice of counsel, I respectfully decline to answer based upon my rights under the Fifth
Yes!
Amendment to the Constitution.
What color's the carpet in front of you?
On the advice of counsel, I respectfully
He
decline
looked.
to
Fauci
answer based
looked.
upon my rights under the Fifth Amendment to the Constitution.
Let's just get one thing straight. You don't have any rights under the Fifth Amendment because you've been pardoned, as you very well know. As the Supreme Court has been clear for a century and more, Brown versus Walker, 1896, when he has been pardoned, he may not stand upon his privilege. You know that. Your lawyers sitting behind you now shifting nervously in their chairs, they know it. This isn't about the Constitution. This isn't about the law. This is about contempt. Contempt for this body and contempt for the American people. But I think I know why you're doing it. It's because you don't want to answer questions. It's because you did all kinds of terrible things. It's because during the pandemic you got rich, didn't you? You got rich. While people were dying, hundreds of thousands of Americans, over 1 million in the end, and you were getting rich, and not only were you doing that, you were using federal employees with taxpayer money to apply for and solicit cash prizes for you personally. Cash prizes totaling over $1 million. You did all of that during the pandemic, didn't you? That's a question.
On the advice of counsel,
Yo,
I
he's got
respectfully
aura.
decline to answer
That-
based upon my rights under the Fifth Amendment to the
Yes.
Constitution.
You remember Greg Folkers? Who was that?
On the advice of counsel, I respectfully decline to answer based upon my rights under the Fifth Amendment to the Constitution.
Ollie.
Your chief of
Ollie,
staff is
bring
the
it.
answer. Do you remember Patricia Conrad? Who was that?
On the advice of counsel, I respectfully decline to answer based upon my rights under the Fifth Amendment to the Constitution.
Uh-huh. She was your personal assistant. And what were these individuals doing in the depth of the pandemic in November of 2020 when millions of Americans were suffering from COVID? What were they doing? I tell you what they're doing. Folkers was on your behalf soliciting and gathering information for a cash award. Let's look at it. We've got his email right here, right over my shoulder.
Yes.
Says, "I'm
This is
working
good
on
clip
this
farming.
Nomination for the Dan David Award for Fauci. We need to beef up the COVID part. Do you have language in the can that you could share that delineates how we responded in new ways to COVID. He sends this to multiple federal employees. What was the Dan David Award? Do you remember, Doc?
On the advice of counsel, I respectfully decline to answer based upon my rights under the Fifth Amendment to the Constitution.
It was a $900,000 cash award. $900,000 cash award. And he got it.
Yo,
because
let's
he
go,
used
Holly.
federal employees to get it. And this wasn't the only award, was it, Dr. Fauci? In fact, you applied for and received at least 8 other federal cash prizes on federal time using federal employees and federal resources. Here they
Yo,
are over
Holly,
my
go!
shoulder.
Let's go!
Besides
Let's
the Dan
go!
David Award, you've got the Partnership for Public Service, you've got the Adelson Prize, you've got the Smithsonian Award, you've got the National Academy of Medicine Award,
let's
you've got
go!
the CDC Foundation. In fact, you turned your staff into a full-time application machine. You actually wrote to people and said,
Felted!
do you think maybe I'd qualify?
Felted! Holly
And you
felted
got
him!
cash for all of this. And it wasn't just 1 or 2 employees, was it? In fact, you used 8 separate federal employees on federal time using federal resources to solicit cash awards. Isn't that true?
On the advice of counsel, I respectfully decline
Yes!
to answer based
This
upon
is
my
what
rights
I'm
under the Fifth
talking
Amendment
about.
to the
This is
Constitution.
Here they are
content.
right over my shoulder. Here's all of them. The people that you use federal employees so that you could go and get cash money. And the most hilarious part is that you weren't content to even dragoon them into applying for all of these cash awards. You then had them go out to the ethics agencies and ethics watchdogs and demand that you be able to get the money. That's right. We've got it in your emails. Your staff and employees on federal time, using federal resources, being paid with federal dollars, are soliciting cash for you. And then they're turning around and saying to the agency, we don't want just an answer, we want to get to yes. Because Fauci wants the money. He wants it. We want to get to yes, and yes takes time. This is your chief of staff again.
He can't even
federal
look
email
up at the thing.
to
He can't even,
pressure
like,
the
he
agency's
keeps
own
averting
ethics
his eyes.
people so that you could get money, so that you could get rich. And it violated the
Look at him
law,
digging. Look at him.
Didn't
Look,
it,
can you
Dr.
see? Can you see him digging? He's digging.
didn't it?
He's digging in his
violated
wrists,
the law, didn't it?
right here under his sleeves.
It is
Like,
a
that's
question.
how you
can
know.
Answer. Go ahead.
People got to pay
On the advice
attention
of
to these
counsel, I
things.
respectfully decline to answer based upon my rights under
The
Fifth
deeper
Amendment
his
to the
finger goes
Constitution.
in his
Federal law,
sleeves.
as you very well know,
Look at that. Look how-
prohibits the solicitation
See that?
of cash awards or other personal benefits.
That's
for
his
federal
tell. That's his
employees.
poker tell.
And it certainly prohibits using your own employees to do this. 5 CFR section 2635
I found his tell.
205B. It says it right there in black and white. You cannot use federal resources, federal dollars, federal employees, federal offices, federal email, federal time to solicit cash awards, and you did all of it. And the worst part is thousands of people were dying while you were doing it. You were supposed to be the nation's doctor, and you were playing one on TV, but this is what you were doing with your time. Isn't that true?
Yeah.
On the advice of counsel, I respectfully decline to answer based upon my rights under the Fifth Amendment
Yes.
to the Constitution.
Yeah. Yeah, I can see why.
Holly's got it.
I can certainly see
Finally.
why. You know what I can't quite figure out is that why you were so obsessed with it, because you're already rich. I mean, and your scheme worked here. I mean, your net worth now is north of $12 million. You got over $1 million in cash awards during COVID, during a 12-month, 24-month span during COVID. $1 million you knocked down in cash money using federal resources. Now you're worth more than $12 million. You've got a pension that in its first year paid out north of $400,000 a year. 1 million people dead, you're getting rich. 1 million people dead, you're using federal employees to get cash awards for you. 1 million people dead, and you're here taking the fifth because you don't want to admit that what really happened in all that time was a multi-month, multi-year course of self-dealing. Isn't that true, Dr. Fauci?
On the advice of counsel, I respectfully decline to answer
Look,
based
this
upon
is
my
how you-
rights
this
under
is
the
how
Fifth
you clip
Amendment to the
farm.
Constitution.
Pay attention, people.
Yeah, well, silence is admission. And here's the real thing. At the end of the day, it wasn't just about the money.
Look
really,
how
was
far
it?
deep.
It was
Look
really
how
about
far
the
deep
power
his
set.
fingers are
I mean, through
In his
all
sleeve.
of this, you want to be
He's
the most
almost-
famous
he's-
scientist in the world. You were so focused on getting every
That's how you
award
know.
and
Look,
every
see that
drop
little-
of
that
cash
little
that you
part right
could,
there.
all because you wanted to be on TV.
That's how you know.
wanted to
Look
be
at-
the
look at-
sun
look how
god of
much his
science.
fingers
you
go
wanted to be
into
the
his
guy
sleeve.
who was in charge of it all. You wanted to blambast Trump. You wanted to make sure that nobody else stole your spotlight. You wanted to be the guy. You had time to sit for In Style magazine. Here's what you were doing with your time. You could sit for In Style magazine, but you can't answer questions for the American people. You could sit for In Style magazine, but you're here taking the fifth. You could sit for In Style magazine and get $1 million in cash awards, but now the cat's got your tongue. I bet he does. I tell you what, here's my conclusion from all of this. This was really all about you the whole time. Somewhere along the way, you lost your way. You may have been a good public servant at one time, I don't know. But I can tell you from reading your emails now, from looking at what you did, how you used your employees, somewhere along the line, it became all about you. You became a narcissist and a megalomaniac and a liar. And you've lied to the American people, and you've lied to this body. And you've disgraced your profession by doing it. You called yourself the most famous scientist in the world. You've done more to harm science than anybody in my lifetime. And I hope you'll go home and write that in your diary.
Yeah!
Mr. Chairman.
Yeah! Hey! Hey! There we go.
Mr. Chairman. Dr. Fauci, I'm not here to perhaps attack you or defend or anything. It's really just more, honestly, I just want to acknowledge I have had members of my family die from COVID, and now I also grieve for people that I've met that have lost their business through the pandemic, and they'll never been the same. Now, during the pandemic, I was the lieutenant governor, so we were in the middle of all of that maelstrom, trying to find the right balance between protect life and protect the economics and for all of it. And I'm not sure if we got it all right or wrong, but without a doubt, I can continue to question myself. But one that it's not about much more your regrets, but I have one, and that is early on that there was the theory that the virus could have emerged from the lab. And early on that became like a right-wing kinds of theory, and I thought it seemed to make sense. Now there was a really advanced lab that was close by, and then you have this unknown virus out. So but that became a very partisan thing.
Josh Hawley
and
is.
now, it seems now it's more and more emerging theory that would have come
Gets it.
from the
He
lab.
gets it.
Now, I think that the next time our nation's facing something like this, we are not become, as I might have been, blinded by the partisan idea that maybe the truth might come from a side that's different than you are. But I think we should really be willing to pursue truth, no matter where that may have emerged, for all of that. So, and I now cede the remain back to the chair. Thank you.
Senator Moreno.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And I will echo Senator Johnson's comments about your opening statement, Mr. Chairman. I think it was dead on. Very, very well done. Mr. Fauci, do you know who David Schertler is?
On the advice of counsel, I respectfully decline to answer
right,
based
watch
upon
this
my
shot.
rights
Watch
under the
this
Fifth
shot I got
Amendment
right
to the
here.
Constitution.
I got a shot pulled up.
Fifth Amendment.
This is what we need to. This is what we need to be paying
What does
attention
the Fifth
to.
Amendment of the Constitution say?
All right.
On the advice of counsel, I respectfully decline to answer based upon my rights under the Fifth Amendment of the Constitution.
No, I'm just asking you what it says.
On the advice of counsel, I respectfully decline to answer based upon my rights under the Fifth Amendment to the Constitution.
I'm going to give the Constitution to my aide. He'll bring it over to you so you can have it for future reference. I think it's something that every American should know what the Constitution says. Do you know who wrote the Fifth Amendment?
On the advice of counsel, I respectfully decline to answer based upon my rights under the Fifth Amendment
Embarrassing.
of the Constitution.
So you're invoking a right that you don't know who wrote it or what it says. Is that correct?
On the advice of counsel, I respectfully decline to answer based upon my rights under the Fifth Amendment to the Constitution.
Wow. Well, let me tell you who David Schertler is for the audience, because he was ejected by the chairman. He's a high-profile criminal attorney. He's represented some really great people, like Senator Bob Menendez. Maybe that's somebody who my Democrat colleagues may remember took gold bars as bribes from the Egyptians. And there's an article here in the Washington Free Beacon that talks about why you would hire a guy like David Schertler. And the comment is, if you're in deep shit, that's who you call. Do you feel like you're in deep shit?
On the advice of counsel, I respectfully decline to answer based upon my rights under the Fifth Amendment to the Constitution.
Clearly, what you think today is that somehow you're above reproach. Somehow you feel like you don't need to be treated like a normal American. Can you do me a favor in the audience and stand up if during the time of the COVID pandemic, you were called a racist for calling the virus a Wuhan virus or the China virus? If you thought the 6-foot rule was total crap, if you thought the vaccine wasn't something that you should take, if you thought it was outrageous the way the mask policy was rolled out, if you were fired from your job for not taking that vaccine, including members of the military, if you thought closing schools was catastrophically stupid, and that you thought that during these times saying these things made you somehow a lesser human being. Dr. Fauci, can you just turn around and look at the people behind you? You're not willing to do that? That's not a question. It's not a question. To your lawyers, not a question. It's a request. All you have to do is look up from your lawyers and look at the people who were absolutely shamed for saying what we know now to be the truth. You can't even look at them? That's a question. Are you able to look at them? You can sit down in the audience. There was a mom in Ohio.
Is that Alex Stein in the audience?
After the coronavirus pandemic.
I think Alex Stein is in the audience. He's got the hat on
to go to her
in
high
the
school
blue, in the
football
blue,
game for her son.
right here. Alex Stein.
They hadn't been out much.
Oh, maybe he's gonna click.
Kids
for
have
him.
been learning at school.
Hopefully, he does something.
And then the school got shut down. They hadn't really gotten much out of that education, as any parent.
By the way, I got this
that
shot
remote
pulled up
learning was
right
no
here.
learning at all.
So when
It
he
was a
starts to
Friday
dig
night.
his fingers in his wrists.
Her son wanted to go watch a buddy
got it
go
pulled
play
up.
football. So they went to the stadium. They sat alone, far from everybody else, just a mom, a dad, a few kids. They didn't feel they needed to wear masks because it was
By the way,
stupid.
if you're watching this, thanks for
they're
joining me
outside.
in the stream. All
They
two
all
of you.
live together. They're not near anybody.
I'm glad the X algorithm caught you.
Dr. Fauci, do you know what happened to that mom and that family? That's a question.
On the advice of counsel, I respectfully decline to answer based upon my rights under the Fifth Amendment to the Constitution.
They were dragged out of that stadium and arrested. Those policies were put in place because you had moronic politicians that listened to the words of a megalomaniac who was more interested in having met a Kardashian than the suffering of the American people, and that is you. Your advice to communities like that, to idiotic politicians who enforce those rules, arrested that mom for watching a football game with her own family outside. When that story broke, I said to myself, I cannot stand idly on the side and watch this happen. It was about 6 years ago today that I decided I'm going to give up my businesses, sell them all, run for office, run for the United States Senate, Here I am sitting in front of you 6 years later saying, who the fuck do you think you were for doing that?
Hey, hey.
It is a total disgrace.
Valid
what you
use.
did to this
Valid use
country.
of the F word
And
right
if my
there.
Democrat colleagues are standing there defending you, I hope the voters of the United States of America watch the clips of every one of you doting on a
Watch the
guy
clips.
who was more interested in being a celebrity than saving American people.
You can't even
I
look him in
will
the eyes.
make it my mission to make certain that every single one
His
of
head is
those
down.
Democrats who did that will see that clip over and over and over again. Because there is no defense of what you did. You may have had a 50-plus year legacy of public service, but it ends in total and complete disgrace. So let me ask you an opportunity to answer one question. Will you apologize, just apologize, to the people who you harmed through your actions? Will you say, do you have the dignity to just say you're sorry?
On the advice of counsel, I respectfully decline to answer based upon my rights under the Fifth Amendment to the Constitution.
So you won't apologize to the military members who Joe Biden summarily dismissed from the military for not taking the vaccine?
On the advice of counsel, I respectfully decline to answer based upon my rights under the Fifth Amendment to the Constitution.
Will you apologize to the business owners that lost their business, shattered their lives, and they'll never recover?
On the advice of counsel, I respectfully decline to answer based upon my rights under the Fifth Amendment to the Constitution.
Will you apologize to the moms who had to force their infant children, 2, 3, 4-year-olds, to put masks on, and what that did and how that traumatized those kids?
Under the Fifth Amendment to the Constitution.
Will you apologize to the family members of the people who died because they took your advice and not only got the first vaccine, but the 5, 6 other boosters that they did not need?
To answer based upon my rights under the Fifth Amendment to the Constitution.
Will you apologize to that mom from Ohio for being arrested for watching a football game with her family?
On the advice of counsel, I respectfully decline to answer based upon my rights under the Fifth Amendment to the Constitution.
By the way,
So you didn't know
see,
who wrote
see
the
his
Fifth Amendment?
fingers?
James Madison.
Watch his fingers.
Lived in this
That-
town.
That's his poker tail. The more
I can only
uncomfortable he is,
wonder
the
what
deeper
he
those
would
fingers
think
go under that sleeve.
of somebody like you invoking his writings to shield
Just
culpability
want you guys to pay attention to that.
for the actions that you
Here we
took.
go. Watch this.
It's no secret why you have to hire the biggest dirtbag attorney on the planet because of what you did. I hope you're paying him well. And I hope that one way or the other, somewhere, sometime,
what is
you
that?
answer for your
Look,
crimes.
look how deep he just threw his whole.
Senator Ernst.
He just threw his
Thank you,
whole
Mr.
fingers
Chairman,
under
for
the under
holding
all the way
this
to the
important hearing
knuckles.
today. Dr.
Knuckle deep.
Fauci, Americans haven't forgotten the tragic stories of people who lost loved ones during COVID and those that were denied a chance to say goodbye to their family members that were in hospitals or residing in nursing homes because of the COVID-19 protocols. Americans haven't forgotten the mandates, the adverse reactions to vaccines, the government misinformation, social media censorship, hotlines to tattle on their neighbors, the forced school closures, the tragic rise in suicides, or those businesses that were forced to close during lockdowns. Americans haven't forgotten the hundreds of billions of dollars spent by taxpayers for COVID relief, stolen by fraudsters who bought Rolls Royces and yachts. These were taxpayer dollars. Americans have lost trust in science and government after the COVID response. Trust which will be incredibly difficult for us to gain back. Dr. Fauci, you said that the science was evolving and that your recommendations evolved with it.
Look at that weird
But
hand
Americans
pose.
remember
Look
you
at that weird hand pose.
as the public face of the coronavirus response. As one of the nation's most trusted voices, you urged policies you said were absolutely necessary.
Look at those hands.
Even when those policies came at an enormous human
This is the way
and
an evil
economic
man.
cost.
Look, who does that?
And Americans
sits with-
deserve answers
Who does that?
about reports that you may have worked with others to pressure the president into adopting
man.
the slow the
This is so
spread
boring. We're just looking at-
strategy and why you later sought an unconditional pardon for crimes you may have committed dating back to 2014.
Man, I wish X would promote live
Dr.
streams
Fauci,
more.
in 2022, you had a
Holy
taxpayer-funded salary
cow.
of $480,000 a year. You were, in fact, the highest paid federal employee in the entire federal government, even making more than the NIH director and the President of the United States. According to now public documents, that was due in large part to your work on biodefense. Unreported is how NIAID spent over $1 billion from 2009 to 2026 in biodefense and influenza federal contracts and subcontracts. My office uncovered records on usaspending.gov that show from 2015 to 2020, NIAID paid out $515,418 in subcontracts to Harbin Veterinary Institute
it does
in
look like you got
Harbin,
a good manicure,
including
though. Look at that.
$100,000 a few days after it opened a BSL-4 biolab in 2018. That very same institute was criticized for doing gain-of-function bird flu research in 2013. And yet you were funding them
Nothing's
for
gonna happen.
years after that, sending U.S. taxpayer dollars to China. These contracts, which we also trace to NIAID, show U.S. taxpayers funded gain-of-function researchers in the Netherlands and in Wisconsin, funding the same folks whose controversial work led President Obama to pause this exact type of dangerous pandemic research. Dr. Fauci, did you know that the NIH's billion-dollar Sears contract programs were funding gain-of-function researchers in China, the U.S., and in the Netherlands?
On the advice of counsel, I respectfully decline to answer based upon my rights under the Fifth Amendment to the Constitution.
Dr. Fauci, Dr. Deborah Birx wrote in her book that you and President Obama's former CDC director were at a Saturday, March 14th, 2020 meeting at her home 2 days before the president announced his 15 days to slow the spread effort. Your now released diary said the meeting was a week before
I just reshared
that.
this stream. If
Dr.
you're watching
Birx
right now,
said
if you
all
could
were
share it. I
trying
know
to
that's
trap
engagement
the
baiting. I
president
know.
into having no
But
other options.
I'm trying to
She
figure out if
wrote,
it's how
"Your
to make
plan
an
was
X
to,
stream
quote,
like
block
actually
any of the
function in the
president's escape
algorithm.
routes." So, quote,
Because
"He
they
had
don't
no
function in the
choice but
algorithm.
to agree to
So
our
if you guys see it, if you guys
flatten-the-curve
could share, like,
measures."
comment, do all
Yes
the
or no,
engagement
Dr.
bait stuff you're
Fauci?
not
Did you
supposed to
try
ask
to
for.
block
Just trying
or
to
trap
see
President
if it's
Trump
possible that it
into
can
the slow
it
the
goes out.
spread,
I don't think it goes
flatten
out
the
on the
curve
FYP at
measures
all.
in March
I'm just trying to
2020.
test that theory. That's
On the
all.
advice of counsel, I respectfully decline to answer based upon my rights under the Fifth Amendment to the Constitution.
When the COVID-19 virus broke out in
Is
Wuhan,
Rand Paul going to
China,
get to speak
you,
again?
Dr. Fauci, knew
Does
pretty
anybody
much
know?
right away that NIH had funded Chinese
Can we get Holly to
labs,
speak again? Can we just
including
like?
those
Can
doing
everybody just yield their
coronavirus
time to
research,
Holly?
There's email traffic from early January 2020 where your staff was flagging for you that NIH funded coronavirus research at
yield
the
your time
Wuhan
to-
lab
everybody
through
yield their time to
EcoHealth
Holly.
Alliance. Yet few Americans knew we funded the Wuhan lab because the funding went through a sub-award and was not reported to the public database like usaspending.gov as it should have been. Also, EcoHealth violated federal law by failing to report in its research papers how much taxpayer funding it spent on that research. At my request, the Government Accountability Office helped track down that $1.4 million of U.S. taxpayer money that was sent to the Wuhan Institute of Virology, both by you, Dr. Fauci, and through USAID. But first, it passed through EcoHealth Alliance, which I helped to get defunded through the NDAA. Dr. Fauci, did you intentionally use subaward funding to obscure NIH funding of Chinese biolabs and coronavirus research?
On the advice of counsel, I respectfully decline to answer based upon my rights under the Fifth Amendment to the Constitution.
NIAID awarded multi-million-dollar grants to a number of scientists shortly after they wrote publicly in the Proximal Origins paper that the COVID virus likely came from nature. Though documents Chairman Paul released last week show in private, those same scientists were much more open to the virus being from a lab. In 2023, Representative Jordan insinuated that you basically gave a $9 million bribe in the form of an NIH grant to NIH-funded virologists to say the virus likely was from nature. Dr. Fauci, yes or no, did you reward the Proximal Origin authors by giving them NIAID grants or contracts?
Yeah, I just went live on Facebook for anybody that's just tuning
Decline to
in.
answer based upon my rights under the Fifth Amendment to the Constitution.
Dr. Fauci, we have learned that U.S. coronavirus researchers at UNC shipped, quote, humanized
went
or
live on
transgenic
Facebook for
mice to
anybody that's,
China by around 2017 for use in their dangerous coronavirus work. Under your NIAID coronavirus, researchers also used aborted baby body parts in mice research.
Oh, here we go. Here's something
and
interesting.
Taxpayers paid for them to do that. NIH-funded coronavirus researcher Dr. Ralph Barrick and his colleagues at UNC put parts of livers, thymuses, and chunks of human fetal lung that they got from aborted, almost 5-month-old human babies. They put those parts in their research mice. They disgustingly named them BLTL mice and wrote they had created a, quote, sandwich of aborted body parts in the
Ew.
mice. Get it, folks? BLT. A BLT sandwich. Your RML lab employees in Montana also ordered and used aborted baby body parts in their taxpayer-funded research. And emails show how they plan to use those mice for post-COVID work. NIH funded putting aborted babies' fingers and scalps off the heads of aborted babies and putting them into the backs of research mice. The scalps later grew fine baby hair in the mice. They even included those disgusting photos in their research paper that you funded. Not all of those were research on coronaviruses, but some were. Thankfully, the current NIH director has said no more of this. Dr. Fauci, yes or no, do you think that human aborted parts should be put into mice for coronavirus research?
All right,
The
got
advice
my
of
Facebook
counsel, I
chat up.
respectfully decline to answer based upon my rights under the Fifth Amendment to the
He's a
Constitution.
psychopath, man.
Mr. Chairman, would you direct the witness to answer the questions that we have been asking?
He probably would if he was here, but you know, I can direct it. But no, I think we understand his answer.
We do understand that. Americans are asking for accountability, Dr. Fauci, and your silence is very telling. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Senator Moody.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. You know, I'm the most junior member of the Senate here, showing from where I sit. I just got here last year. Many of you may remember I was the Attorney General in Florida who fought back against the lockdowns, the school closures, the church closures, everything to embrace sanity and science. We fought back. We got ridiculed for it. And we didn't just call people names.
We need more Hollies.
We actually
Senator
impaneled
Josh
a
Hollies. We
grand
need
jury
more because
of people of all
this is
walks of life, all political persuasions.
what's he doing right now? What was that? What
So
was
that's
that?
how I came here. Fighting for a free state
Did the demons
amongst
just make
states
him
that had locked
what?
their own people down.
What just happened?
We are now called the Free State of Florida.
I
And
think,
I
guys,
believe
if you
our
notice, like
responsibility
back
here
here, the hat is
is
Alex
to make
Stein.
sure that government
Alex Stein
remembers
back
the
here.
people
I really
are our
hope
bosses,
he just.
that we report to them.
I really
that we're
hope he just
accountable to them.
tries to do a
Government shouldn't
viral
operate
moment
for itself. Government operates
and
on
just
behalf
starts
of and for the
standing
American
up
people.
and screaming and hollering and gets carried
And
away and
anytime we
taken
get
out and
close
escorted
to
out.
reporting back to our bosses about what government has done or how it's been abused or how individuals that are employed by the government had acted in their own self-interest or against the interests of the American people, every time
It
we
would
get
be great if we
close,
could at
if we
least
start
like
uncovering outrageous fraud,
throw tomatoes
we'll have a
at
hearing.
Dr. Fauci.
And the tactics have been to not show up. So you'll have all of us over here trying to drill down on why we've been giving money that actually works against American citizens, and no one shows up. Today well, nobody's here at the moment. Today there seems to be a different tactic. Today we have Democrats showing up and trying to spin why we shouldn't even be having this hearing, to report back to our bosses.
They're talking
One
about
said,
explosive
"This
diarrhea."
hearing does damage.
That's all
It
the
will
Democrats are
deter
doing
others
is they're
from
talking about
public
explosive
service."
diarrhea.
Another said this hearing is designed to entrap you. Another said, one fell all over himself flattering you, thanking you for your service multiple times, quoting
He
men
did.
in the marine
He did. He was
arena.
simping. He was simping for Fauci. It was
Another
the Asian
said
dude.
that we are demeaning first responders. And today is a sad play in a repeated playbook. Or we're going after one man. I mean, all of their time was used on why we should not be having the hearing to report back to our bosses and give the people accountability. So I would like to talk about that because I believe that the trust the American people place in our public health institutions and what happened to that trust during COVID is important. Because in a public health emergency, they are asked to make extraordinary sacrifices based on advice given to them by the government that is supposed to be working for them. And for that system to work, the public has to be able to trust the people giving them instructions. That trust depends on candor. Would you agree with that, Dr. Fauci?
On the advice of counsel, I respectfully decline to answer based upon my rights under the Fifth Amendment to the Constitution.
And when the evidence is uncertain, officials need to say so when recommendations
Y'all, if you guys are
based
watching on Facebook,
assumptions
welcome to the chat.
rather than hard
Thank
data.
you, guys.
They need
Be sure to
say so,
share
and
it.
when they get something wrong, they need to
Sure
own
to
it.
share, retweet, do all the
And when
things.
trust
I
is
know it's
lost,
engagement
the
baiting.
consequences extend far beyond
Your account
any
can be
single
banned on
pandemic.
X for engagement
The
baiting.
next time
But that's
public
like
health officials genuinely
basic
need
chatting
Americans to
101,
listen,
so
millions of people may
welcome.
simply ignore them or not believe them. And Dr. Fauci, you were undeniably the face of the federal government's COVID response. You said so yourself in your diary.
He is a moron.
You said it's not hyperbole to say, I've become the most famous and talked about person in the country. So I want to understand
Because he's a psychopath.
how we got here. Let's start at the beginning. On March 8th, 2020, you appeared on 60 Minutes to discuss the spread of COVID-19. You were specifically asked to clear up the
look at this.
confusion
Look at
and
these evil
misinformation
hands.
surrounding masks. You told the American people right now in the
Look at
United
that.
States,
Who holds
people
their
should not
hands
be
like
walking
this?
around with a mask. The interviewer immediately stopped
Evil
you and
villains.
said, are you sure
The
of it?
answer is
Because
evil
people
villains.
are listening really closely to this. And instead of walking back or qualifying your statement in any way, you doubled down. There's no reason to be walking around with a mask. when you're in the middle of an outbreak, wearing a mask might make people feel a little better. It might even block a droplet, but it's not providing the perfect protection that people think it is. And often there are unintended consequences. People keep fiddling with their masks. They keep touching their face. Just a few weeks later, the CDC released its guidance recommending that Americans wear masks in public.
By the way, because there's a lot of people watching on Facebook right now, the more he fiddles and fidgets with his hands, like the more like nervous he gets. So occasionally I'll zoom
People
in.
who
That's,
really needed them
look
because
at this.
it was felt there was a shortage of masks.
The more he fidgets,
So I want
this is
everybody
his
to sit
poker
with that.
tail.
The critical issue driving your initial recommendation to the American public was scarcity, logistics, not medical evidence. So when you told the American people there was no reason to wear a mask,
Sorry. Forgot to
what
change
was
it
your
back.
principal objective? Giving them an honest assessment of the medical evidence or discouraging them from consuming a scarce supply of masks?
On the advice of counsel, I respectfully decline to answer based upon my rights under the Fifth Amendment to the Constitution.
Well, unfortunately,
We need more.
that's
We
just
need
the
more
beginning of a
rage baiting
broader
Fauci.
pattern. Let's talk about
We
the
need more
6 foot
Hollies.
distancing rule.
Just need to
In
rage bait
April
him.
5th, 2020, interview on CBS
Because at least,
said,
at
every
least you
time I
can,
get to that
you
podium in the
like
White
body
House briefing
language
room,
says
I
a lot.
always
So if you,
essentially
but if you're not
plead
rage
with
baiting
people,
them, you're wasting your
Please take a
time.
look at those very simple guidelines.
They're
of
always trying to
physical
get votes.
separation, and they're very, very
They
clear.
just want to adjust
Physically
them for
separate
votes.
6 feet away. Yet when Congress finally asked you in 2024 what science supported that evidence, 6 foot distance
You need to
rule for
clip
COVID,
farm.
you
Clip farm
admitted
Fauci.
you were not aware of any studies supporting it. Incredibly, you said the 6 foot rule sort of just appeared and described it as an empiric decision that wasn't based on data. That rule had real consequences. Schools didn't open back up. Businesses didn't open back up. Churches didn't open back up. I could go on and on and on. And Americans were kept physically separated
Trying to
from
put on
one
a
another
humble
during the most
face when he
difficult
is amongst
moments
one of the
their
proudest men in the
lives.
country.
Many lost loved ones during that time.
He can't even look people in the eyes.
So, Dr. Fauci, did you have any evidence
He can't
to
even look people
support
in the
a
eyes.
6 foot
He looks
separation
down.
rule
He
when you
fiddles
gave
his
that advice
hands.
to Americans?
Body language is all we got, people. Body language is all we got.
On the advice of counsel, I respectfully decline to answer based upon my rights under the Fifth Amendment to the Constitution.
All right, well,
We
let's
should
look at the
we
lockdowns
should
then.
put
By
in the
2022, the
Constitution
consequences
that
of prolonged COVID
tomatoes
lockdowns
are
on our
allowed to be
children were
thrown at these
clear,
hearings.
from delayed development to social isolation, which is probably why you were asked in July 2022 whether you would recommend locking down schools again.
Yeah, they
And you
should.
said,
They should.
"First of all,
They should ask
I
him
didn't
about
recommend
AIDS.
locking anything
They
down."
should.
But now we have your
Is he? He's
diary,
pardoned for that too.
and
Is
it
he
tells a
pardoned for his
very
AIDS stuff
different
too,
story
or
from
just the
one you
COVID
told the
stuff? I
public.
don't know.
And I will quote.
Can we arrest him
I
on the
spoke with
AIDS
Bill
stuff?
de Blasio, the mayor of NYC, and convinced him based on what I was saying publicly in my
Parking
conversation
tickets?
tonight
Can
to
we
close
arrest
the
him on
NYC
parking tickets,
schools.
expired
He had
parking
already
tickets?
decided based on what I was saying on TV. I went on to tell him he should close the bars and restaurants in NYC, and he said he would do this based on my recommendation. You even said that you told the president we should
What
shut
color
the
is
whole
the tie
country
you're
down.
wearing? I
So,
plead
Dr.
the fifth.
Fauci,
Can
how
we
do you
arrest him
dare
for the
tell
color of his
American
tie?
people publicly that you didn't recommend
There's got to
locking
be
anything
something.
down.
There's
when
got to
your
be
own
something.
Diary entry kept on
The average
federal
human
government equipment saying that your
violates several
recommendation
felonies
is what
a year,
convinced the
right? Isn't what I
American
heard?
president
There's got to be
to
something.
lock things down.
On the advice of counsel, I respectfully decline to answer based upon my rights under the Fifth Amendment to the Constitution.
Now, I just want to make clear that when in Florida, we were pleading with people to give us advice based on scientific evidence, that we were getting these conflicting statements by you that didn't match scientific data. And in fact, when we impaneled a grand jury, the grand jury's conclusion, not surprising to anyone, and by the way, we're still the only state to have impaneled a grand jury. I was the only attorney general to do this. We did this in 2023. That conclusion was the lockdown, mask, and social distancing advice ministered by federal agencies and implemented by certain local, state, and federal agencies was not based on the best available scientific data. In fact,
AIDS
many
is past the
recommendations
statute of
and their accompanying
limitations.
mandates departed significantly from available
Got to be something, guys. Let's put our heads together, chat.
Again, people from all walks of life, all political persuasions.
Jaywalking.
That is what they found. And yet,
Can we
during
arrest
that
them for
time, while you were
jaywalking?
giving
Is there
those
so? There's
statements,
got to be
knowing There
something.
was no scientific basis for it. And we know now you knew it because we have your diary entries. You called the governor that I worked with to fight to keep
There's got to be
Washington
something,
and
chat.
DC out of our state so that we could indeed respect the rights of our citizens.
I'm going to ask ChatGPT a list of crimes most people always commit. That's what I'm going to do.
A total jerk.
There's got to be something.
That he is a complete disgrace, that he is blocking local authorities from mandating masks in various locations, including schools.
It's got to
We
be.
were very concerned and upset that we were actively, and I'm going to quote, criticizing you, and we talked virtually every day about being wrong on everything. And what is astounding is that you wrote you feared because of that, because we were questioning our government, because we were fighting back for the truth from our government, from scientifically based recommendations, because we were pushing for that. You said you feared that our democracy is in dire danger.
Speeding, jaywalking, rolling stops, using a phone while driving, pirating media, sharing passwords for subscription services, littering, not updating address on ID/registration, walking a dog without a leash where required, and minor tax inaccuracies. He's got to have committed one of them.
Transparent with us and accountable to us.
Let's do only felonies, so he never has to
That is a
vote.
democracy.
Only felonies.
What you did is the opposite. And I cannot believe I have to explain this to someone who represented our government and some of the most important issues for so long. And before I conclude, if I can just put up our pardon. This is the pardon you have heard so much about. And Dr.
Auto
Fauci,
sign.
the only other person that got a pardon like this, I believe, had a last name of Biden. This pardon goes back to, and if you'll see, January the 1st of 2014. Did you talk to President Biden and ask for this pardon?
On the advice of counsel, I respectfully decline to answer based upon my rights under the Fifth Amendment to the Constitution.
Who did you talk to in the White House about this pardon?
On the advice of counsel, I respectfully decline to answer based upon my rights under the Fifth Amendment to the Constitution.
Did you specifically ask that it be dated back to the beginning of 2014?
On the advice of counsel, I respectfully decline to answer based upon my
course he
rights
did.
under the Fifth Amendment to the Constitution.
Did you do that so that you would be given immunity going back to the beginning of 2014?
Can we zoom out? Can we zoom out on the pardon?
On the advice of counsel, I respectfully decline to answer based upon my rights under the Fifth Amendment to the Constitution.
I'm just very interested in why it was this date. Did it have anything to do with the fact that 2014 was also the year that the NIAID or NIH began funding EcoHealth Alliance's Understanding the Risk of Bat Coronavirus Emergence
That
grant?
J looks like an auto pen error.
On the advice of
On the
counsel, I
signature?
respectfully decline to answer based upon my rights under the Fifth Amendment to the Constitution.
And this is the same grant that funded the work on bat coronaviruses at the Wuhan Institute.
Doesn't that look like an
on
auto pen error?
Virology.
It looks like it slipped. The pen slipped.
Millions of Americans are questioning what happened during COVID.
I'm trying to
why
find
we were
something
given misleading information,
that's entertaining
misleading
about
advice,
this that makes
why
me
you
laugh
gave
and brings me
conflicting
joy because
statements
it's very depressing.
based on, I guess,
ultimately.
how you were feeling that day. And Americans, rightfully, we lost over 1 million Americans. They should be insulted when the Democrats insult our chair that he's doing this because he is on an obsessive mission to go after one man. Could his obsessive mission be to find out why 1 million Americans died and who might be responsible for that and where that started? Could that be his mission, Dr. Fauci?
On the advice of counsel, I respectfully decline to answer based upon my rights under the Fifth Amendment to the Constitution.
And after everything we have just
I hate
walked
this
through,
so
can you sit
much.
here today and tell the American people
we need to get
that you bear no
Josh
responsibility
Hawley
for
back.
their collapse in trust of their government.
Based upon my rights under the Fifth Amendment to the Constitution.
Time has expired. We're going to do another quick round for those who remain, about 5 minutes. Any questions that haven't come up that are pressing? Let's try not to go over territory that's already been done. I'll begin by
There's
asking
no
unanimous
question,
consent to insert
like,
into the record
answering
documents
questions is
that
not-
show that the CIA transferred funds
is not
to
important.
NIAID through interagency agreement. Hearing no objection, so ordered.
They
We
need,
had
they
hoped
need to
hear
embarrass
testimony
him.
From Anthony Fauci today.
And
We
they need to
haven't.
rage bait him. He
But I
needs
think
to
it's
be
important
rage
that we do
baited.
hear from him. So we will have a video we'll play in a moment.
Oh, the
For
video.
years,
That was my idea.
Anthony Fauci has been the public face of saying this in all likelihood came from nature. He kept saying, it's the marketplace, it's the marketplace, it's the marketplace. He's been saying that on television up until recently. But what we find is that what he was saying in public is different than what he was saying in private. In January, in private, he wrote that looks like the wet market was a super spreader event. It didn't originate there. We know that some of the earliest deaths and sickness came from somewhere else. But then for years and years, we got dishonesty. So let's play the video so we can see a little juxtaposition of the problem we're dealing with.
Oh, this is useless. No, can we have audio, please? Can somebody fix the audio on this, please?
Wild are being brought into wet markets. So there are animals that come out of the wild that are sold like these open,
Yo, for real.
wet markets, where you bring animals in from the wild who have these viruses.
Look how cocky he was.
Wet markets in Asia where people bring animals from the forest into market. There are wet markets in Wuhan that are ample opportunity for a virus to jump from an animal.
Sounds racist blaming wet markets. That sounds like
Very
racism.
likely in a wet market, and those animals should not have been in the Wuhan market. They knew that those animals should not have been in the market, and they immediately cleaned out the market, put restrictions on the kinds of animals that come into these wet markets. I think I should shut down those things right away. I mean, it's just...
Shut down the wet markets. The poor people trying to make money.
So repeatedly saying in public,
That's gross.
Something different than what
He's
he
a gross.
believed in private.
What a gross human being.
Now, this is interesting because, you know, the first SARS outbreak in 2003 was traced to a wet market, to animals there. But interestingly, they had evidence. They had evidence
I
that
wish
the
he would
animals had
sweat
the
through his
disease.
suit. I would
They also
love
had
to
evidence that
see
the handlers had a disproportionately
stains.
high number of antibodies to the disease. So there was evidence, and the evidence was presented. So when this came out, the same thing happened again. They did look at the wet market. They looked at the wet market and
All right, pay
tested, I
attention
think,
to his hands,
80,000
guys.
animals and didn't find any animals that had
this is where-
COVID-19. When they did find COVID-19 and trace samples
This
there,
is where
they
all
found
the
that
all
DNA
the
or
magic
RNA was
is right
consistent
here on how he
with,
fidgets
human
when he's asked
spread.
tough questions.
This was known not later on, didn't take years to develop, was known in January of 2020. And so Dr. Fauci says privately he knows it didn't come from the wet market, but as you saw, those were over a multi-year period. One of the other discussions I've had with Dr. Fauci over the years about natural immunity. So most infections, you get a degree of immunity, not perfect, some fairly perfect. Smallpox, you just don't get again. George Washington knew this. He had his wife get vaccinated, but he didn't because he'd already had smallpox.
By the way, recording a movie inside a theater without authorization is a felony that most everyday people commit. So if anybody sees Fauci at the movie theater with you, please call the police if he brings out his phone.
She was still alive. 2 to 3 weeks later, we'd all recovered, and they wouldn't let us be with her. And to this day, it's one of the saddest things. And it just, you know, I think all of us should think about this. They were not allowed to visit their mom. He wasn't allowed to visit his wife in the hospital. But based on this misunderstanding of natural immunity, that for some reason, 2 weeks later, they were a problem. But this was all promulgated by you. We had the workers in the, the meat factories. They were essential. They had to keep working. Most of them got COVID. They got it in the first couple of weeks. Most of them were younger. The reassurance should have come from public health. The reassurance should have said, congratulations, you've recovered. It also should be acknowledged. What's the
am the
number one
science.
thing we can do if we get another pandemic? Before we have a vaccine, before we have monoclonal antibodies, it would be to utilize natural immunity. So instead of the advice you were giving to Cuomo and others in New York that led to the deaths of hundreds of thousands of people or tens of thousands of people, you could have been saying, well, maybe the nurses taking care of the elderly should be people who are 2 weeks out from COVID infection. We could have used natural immunity as somewhat of a block of protection. Imperfect, but the only protection we had and the only thing we could have done. Instead, the nursing homes were seated with people who had COVID. So I think the discussion of natural immunity is one where there wasn't sufficient honesty, humility, there wasn't enough presentation to encourage people. That was the only encouraging thing we had for a while is you've got it, you're very, very, if not impossible, close to impossible chance that you'll die if you get it again. Everybody could have been reassured. Nobody was reassured. It's like, well, we don't know. We just don't quite understand natural immunity. My favorite quote from that is from Martin Kulldorff from Harvard. You called him one of the people that you had to take down, the fringe epidemiologist, which I've never ever heard a scientist call another scientist that. But he jokingly said on Twitter, he said, yeah, we knew about natural immunity from 486 BC, from the time of the Athenian plague. We lost all knowledge of it in 2020. The good news is it's slowly coming back. 24 to 2025, we're beginning to understand what natural immunity is again.
He's very
Not something
nervous about
perfect,
natural
but
immunity,
a
by the
useful
way.
tool that could have been used, but also
He doesn't
something that could
like
have
the discussion
helped
of that.
people by telling the public, my goodness, you're not going to die now. You have a chance. If you've already had it and you're 85 years old and you're at risk for it, and you're wanting to feed your wife, and they're telling you to wear 4 masks and not be around your wife when you've already had it, it made no sense. I visited with a man whose mom was 83 and she was dying from COVID. They go to the hospital in Orange County. They won't admit her to the hospital till she's vaccinated because we have a policy that everybody in the hospital must be vaccinated. She's got COVID and they wanted to vaccinate her again. At one point in time, the CDC understood this. They told people, don't get vaccinated if you've had COVID within 3 months. Why? Because it may give you a heightened immune response when you've already got a heightened immune response. But giving a person very sick, and many of the people who died from COVID died from sort of this storm of response, this immune storm. The answer wouldn't be try to stir up their immune response more by giving them a vaccine. The answer was actually steroids, and good old-fashioned steroids, 37% reduction in death. It turned out to be way more valuable than remdesivir, way more valuable than any of the other treatments, but I don't remember ever hearing a complimentary word on natural immunity or steroids or anything else. And you know, I wish we could have done more today. I would have been willing to accept an apology today. I'm sorry I made mistakes. We all made mistakes. And, you know, at the time, I thought the gain of function research was, you know, the risks of it were worth the benefits. But I've reassessed since 15 million people died. People say, well, gosh, these things never happen. We know it happened in 1977. We know with 100% certainty a virus escaped. In 1977, there's something called the Russian flu. Nobody's exactly positive how it got out. But when they sequenced it, they found out that a flu in 1977 had exactly the same RNA as a 1954 one that they had in the lab and they had created a vaccine for. In fact, turns out anybody born before 1954 was immune, and the only people who got it were people who were born between 1954 and 1977. But it was identical. The genetic sequence was identical to this vaccine or the virus from 1954, and that doesn't happen because these respiratory viruses are always mutating. To be identical means it had to have leaked from the lab.
The Russian flu
Proof
is racist.
positive that it had. So we know this happens.
Crazy.
An author by the name of Young wrote a book and said there was 1,200 cases of significant accidents that have occurred. We knew all of this, and yet it was completely discounted because I think you were worried that if it was seen that you funded dangerous research that started the pandemic, you'd get blamed. And it was a concerted effort. It wasn't just you. Anybody associated with the funding decided we needed to protect ourselves. Senator Johnson.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. You mentioned that we lost knowledge of natural immunity. I didn't. Dr. Fauci did. I suppose I had an asymptomatic case of COVID because of the very faulty PCR tests. I never got vaccinated or injected. There's no way I would have done that because I found out enough about the mRNA gene therapy. But you also brought up the issue of hospital protocols. I'm going to be holding a public event on hospital protocols. We've already received a couple hundred testimonies. They are heart-wrenching. They are heart-wrenching. Here's an excerpt from the testimony of a staff surgeon, very experienced, doctor for decades, at Providence Regional Medical Center, Everett, Washington. Quote, after our hospital was given remdesivir by the CDC, we were provided misleading/inaccurate information about the drug by our medical leadership. When I had a young trauma patient who was a perfect candidate for remdesivir, the infectious disease doctor on call told me to not give it to her because, quote, she seemed like a nice girl. He concludes, it was known early the remdesivir kills. As I said, nurses referred to it as run, death is near. So again, I've always been, because it never made sense to me that we put all of our eggs in the experimental gene therapy. If you knew anything about it, you would have avoided it like a plague. And we didn't,
Yeah.
we sabotaged
Natural
early treatment.
immunity.
But
There
early
goes
treatment, we
Fauci's
really
paycheck.
improved monoclonal antibodies, which I think
I
basically worked
don't
pretty
like,
well,
guys,
but
I don't
those
like,
weren't particularly available.
like all of this stuff is just rehashing everything that happened during COVID with it's just such a waste of time. It's such a, I understand that there's value in humiliating him and having him have to plead the fifth and then, all the negative aspects of that. But this is what's going to happen. The left is just going to see him as a hero and brave for appearing and pleading the fifth to every question. Just to be honest, if there was a conservative that was being drilled, the conservatives would start defending the Fifth Amendment. Yeah, well, of course we would, right? So nothing's going to happen as a result. It's going to be embarrassing. Holly's clip farming was great when he asked him and he pleaded the fifth to the color of his tie. All that sort of stuff. But this sort of stuff, man, this is just nonsense. It's nonsense. It's a circus. It's all really for the egos of most of these politicians. I think Rand Paul actually, I think he actually cared, but there's nothing Rand Paul can do. Our system is built in such a way that it protects any political official from ever receiving punishment for their actual crimes, and we only punish those who are not really criminals. For example, when Trump was, had to get a mugshot of Trump. It's unbelievably disgusting. And I don't know the solution, because you're not going to, with the political system we have today, you're not going to create a system where politicians get justice. The politicians are not going to vote in favor of them being criminal, their crimes being exposed and there being consequence. There's just no way. There's no political process in which we can get justice, because the criminals are the ones who are doing all of that, whether it's through the election system and using Venezuela election machines or whatever. There's nothing we can do. There's nothing, I don't know what the solution is. That's what I'm getting at. I don't know what the solution is. If somebody has a solution to how regular human beings who died during COVID can get justice, I would love to know. But I don't think outside of Anthony Fauci spending an eternity in hell, or him repenting and the wrath of that coming on Christ, I don't think that he's going. I just don't think there's going to be any justice. Those are the only two options for justice I see with Fauci, is hell and eternity in hell, or forgiveness through Christ. And I don't think I just don't see on earth a civil consequence ever coming to him. I just don't see it. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe he jaywalks or something, and the judge sends him to life in prison for jaywalking. Maybe, I mean, that would be unjust, but I think I would allow it. I think I would allow it. Only for Fauci one time. Only for Fauci for one time. Life in prison for jaywalking. Nothing
of
is
suicides
happening.
is increasing because they've given up
Nothing
hope.
ever happens.
Because our medical establishment and federal health agencies completely failed them, failing to acknowledge it. So again, Dr. Nath was diagnosing and treating injection injured in March of 2021. This concerned people. So you had Dr. Walter Koroshitz, writes Dr. Fauci. One of the points he made, there's been a steady, slow stream of reports to me of post-vaccination neurological conditions. Dr. Nath has been collecting a bunch. He has reports sent out to publish. Well, that alarmed everybody. Boy, you can't let the public know what's actually happening. You can't actually let the public know what the science is showing. So on April 29th, a email from Francis Collins, head of NIH, to Dr. Koroshitz,
Insanely
says, I
boring.
find this approach troubling and will have the main consequence of feeding vaccine hesitancy and social media overreaction. Then Dr.
I have
Lawrence
302
Tabak
views on
writes to
X
Francis
right now.
Collins,
Do you guys remember
I don't
302?
understand
That number on YouTube,
why
like way
Walter
back in
does
the day.
not shut this thing down.
It was a magic number.
Why don't you shut down Dr. Nath, who's actually treating injection injured? Why? Because of vaccine hesitancy.
Very rare meta joke.
Because we haven't acknowledged that. And the reason I've been advocating for this is because I know the injection injured. I know people who lost loved ones within days of the injection. And we've turned our backs on them. They deserve acknowledgement. They deserve to be heard, seen, and believed so they can get treatment. I also know the doctors whose careers were destroyed because you denigrated things like ivermectin and denied ivermectin to people in hospitals who got their kidneys knocked out by the remdesivir but got put on ventilators, never got to hug their loved ones goodbye because of those hospital protocols. That's what your science did to people. So, Dr. Fauci, my only question is, based on your lack of testimony here today, based quite honestly on our investigation into the cover-up of safety signals and injection injuries, we have issued letters to a number
thank you guys
of
for
former
watching, by
FDA
the way.
officials to come in for transcribed interviews. You will be getting a letter today asking for a volunteer transcribed interview. So I'd be asking, will you comply or will I have to subpoena you?
On the advice of counsel, I respectfully decline to answer based upon my rights under the Fifth Amendment to the Constitution.
Expect a subpoena. Thank you.
Senator Scott.
Dr. Fauci, did you personally receive any royalty payments connected to COVID-related intellectual property?
On the advice of counsel, I respectfully decline to answer based upon my rights under the Fifth Amendment to the Constitution.
Given that NIH receives royalty payments from certain pharmaceutical companies, why would any American believe these financial ties did not influence decisions about which treatments were promoted or restricted?
On the advice of counsel, I respectfully decline to
I
answer
respectfully
based upon
decline
my
to
rights
answer
under the
based
Fifth
upon
Amendment to
my
the
rights of the Fifth
Constitution.
Amendment to the Constitution.
Why doesn't NIAID publicly disclose these payments?
On the advice of counsel,
I respectfully decline to
based upon
answer
my rights
based on
under the Fifth Amendment to the Constitution.
Yeah, that one. Yeah.
Did you partner with Bill Gates on global health initiatives or vaccines?
On the advice of
On
counsel,
advice of my counsel, I respectfully decline to answer based on my rights of the Fifth Amendment of the Constitution.
How much did Bill Gates entities provide in funding to NIAID collectively since 2005?
On the advice of
Based
counsel,
on counsel, I respectfully decline to answer based on my rights of the Fifth Amendment of the Constitution.
To your knowledge, did Bill Gates partner with China on sensitive research?
On the advice of counsel,
I respectfully decline to
based upon
comment.
my rights under the Fifth Amendment to the
Yeah,
Constitution.
that.
Specifically, dual-use research such as
I like-
countermeasures or gain of function?
On the advice of counsel, I respectfully decline to answer based upon my rights under the Fifth Amendment to the Constitution.
Do you know if Bill Gates' entities partnered with U.S. government classified
Oh, this
programs?
is such a waste of time. This is such a waste of time. He's not going to just suddenly go, you know what, I'm going to
Do you know if
answer
Bill
that
Gates maintains
question.
an active national security clearance?
On the advice of counsel, I respectfully decline to answer based upon my rights under the Fifth Amendment to the
Most
Constitution.
of these
Did you advocate a
congressmen are
request for Bill Gates to
so
receive a security clearance?
dumb.
On the advice of
And
counsel, I
like they just
respectfully
don't
decline
think
to answer
about
based
like
upon
what's
my rights under the Fifth
valuable.
Amendment
It's
to the
just like I'm going to
Constitution.
answer
Do you
these
have any
most boring
knowledge that
questions.
NIAID or NIH through HHS sponsored or
I hate
requested
it.
security
I
clearance
hate
for
it.
Bill Gates?
On the advice of counsel, I respectfully decline to answer based upon my rights under the Fifth Amendment to the Constitution.
Around 2010, my understanding is that the government shifted its approach to biodefense countermeasure research to NIAID under your leadership, partnering with the Obama White House or any other U.S. government classified entities on sensitive countermeasures research.
On the advice of counsel, I respectfully decline to answer based upon my rights under the Fifth Amendment to the Constitution.
Did your office take steps to drive biological research investments?
On the advice of counsel, I respectfully decline to answer based upon my rights under the Fifth Amendment to the Constitution.
What was private industry's take on the type of research in the 2010 timeframe and before?
On the advice of counsel, I respectfully decline to answer based upon my rights under the Fifth Amendment to the Constitution.
Was it considered too dangerous to conduct and industry was hesitant to take this on and invest in?
On the advice of counsel, I respectfully decline to answer based upon my rights under the Fifth Amendment to the Constitution.
Why did you take steps to mature the government's approach to biodefense?
On the advice of counsel, I respectfully decline to answer based upon my rights under the Fifth Amendment to the Constitution.
Were there any specific lines of effort or actions you felt were needed during this time to improve the research development and fielding model?
On the advice
What
of
is?
counsel,
Can
I
somebody tell me what the
respectfully
point
decline
of
to answer
that
based upon my rights
asking?
under the Fifth-
Look, I'm sorry, but like, after a certain point, you just have to embarrass him. Just asking these questions over and over and over again, knowing he's just going to plead the Fifth, is just wasting people's time. You have to, Holly did it right. Like, just clip farm or a farm, just get the clips, trend on X, embarrass him publicly, humiliate him. Like, that's all you could do. Like, just this is just so stupid. Like, I can't stand that the congressmen are just doing this. Is there a purpose? Is there a goal? Like, is something actually going to occur as a result of just asking the same questions and having them plead the Fifth over and over and over again? Like, I don't know. If there is, somebody tell me, because this is driving me nuts. This is like rage bait him. Rage bait. This is exactly what should be happening. You should be rage baiting him. You should be mocking his haircut. You should be mocking his ears. You should be trying to get him to lose his cool. You should completely, honestly, like this is why I'm saying, like, in 20 to 30 years, when like IRL streamers run for office and win and they understand clip farming, like this stuff is going to be way better. Because they're not just going to do this boring stuff over and over and over again. It's super annoying. I hate it. I hate it. Look. All I'm saying is, if you're gonna just do this, you might as well try to get every viral moment you can, and just he should never be able to hang his head high after he walks out of that building. And this sort of boring, sort of procedural stuff just drives me nuts. I can't stand it. Vote for me.
Q security clearance from 2014 to 2021.
I just hate it.
Without objection, that will be entered into the record. I'd also ask unanimous consent to enter into the record the contents of the folder of authorities provided to Dr. Fauci, including the pardon. Let's be clear today, what we've seen. I really did want to hear from Dr. Fauci. I wanted to hear perhaps an apology, perhaps some semblance of being sorry for what happened or that judgment errors were made. We didn't hear any of that. But he was subpoenaed here to testify, refused to answer any questions, even after being directed by the chair and being advised of the law requiring him to do so. He has cited a privilege that is unsupported because of his blanket pardon and because he waived the privilege by testifying at the start. I'm going to give you one more opportunity to comply with the law, limited to the period of your pardon. At any point between January 1st, 2014 and January 19th, 2025, did you destroy any federal record or tell anyone else to?
Under the advice of counsel, I respectfully
He had to
decline
bring out
answer
the
based
card.
upon
He
my
doesn't
rights
have it
under the
memorized
Fifth Amendment
already?
to the Constitution.
Given that you have a unlimited
He thought it was
presidential
done.
pardon,
I
what
think he
is
thought
your
it was wrapping
specific
up.
objection that you are making?
On the advice of counsel, I respectfully decline to answer based upon my rights under the Fifth Amendment to the Constitution.
My question was limited to the period of your pardon only. I find your objection unsupported and direct you to answer the question.
On the advice of counsel, I respectfully decline to answer based upon my rights under the Fifth Amendment to the Constitution.
Because you refuse to answer, citing a privilege that is unsupported
Come on, Rand.
because of your pardon, and after being denied to do so, this committee has scheduled a vote next week on a resolution certifying your contempt. I think we have another question or two from Senator Langford.
Contempt.
Really, this is a question for you, and it's a question to try to figure out how do we get a good answer on this? Because clearly Dr. Fauci's attorneys
I don't
are
think that
saying
contempt's going to do
he has a
anything.
Fifth Amendment right. We've also subpoenaed him to be able to compel his testimony to be able to be here. I happen to be in the committee. We're also dealing with Lois Lerner. Lois Lerner came and testified, gave an opening statement, and then took the Fifth Amendment. The committee then held her in contempt for that, saying you can't do both. You can't both testify and say I'm not going to answer questions. So the parliamentary question that I think we've got to be able to deal with is this consistent with Lois Lerner? What she also did when she came before Congress, gave an opening statement, testimony, so made a statement, and then refused to answer questions. Are we dealing with the same issue here where someone is you can't make a statement and say I'm not going to make statements at the same time?
I think it's a very good question. I think that's something all of us will examine over the next week. We're going to have a vote next week on contempt. I think there's another legal question that the courts may have to decide upon, and that is whether or not a presidential pardon that offers you complete immunity, that you can still claim that you need protection from immunity when you've been protected. Because Dr. Fauci isn't liable for anything as long as he tells the truth. Even if he admits that he destroyed records on a routine basis. His assistant said she destroyed a ton of emails. I think it was a routine thing. I think he destroyed throughout his career there probably thousands.
Probably why there was no mention of
emails.
ivermectin
Even
on
if he
any
did
of
that,
the
as long as
diary
he answered
entries.
truthfully, yes, I did. I didn't think that was important. I made a mistake. He can't be prosecuted for it. Many of the things are outside the statute of limitations as well. All he had to do today, if he wanted to testify, was be honest. As long as he was honest, even about committing a crime, he would have no jeopardy. But I think the pardon has given him more immunity than most people would ever get. Like if you offer a witness immunity in exchange for testimony, he has blanket immunity. The president gave him blanket immunity for virtually anything he could have possibly done, while at NIH. So I think we all have to individually
He's got Kenneth
answer
Copeland
this
eyes,
question.
man.
We welcome you to be part of
He really
helping us
does.
figure
He's
out the question. But there will
demon-possessed.
be a vote, at least right now, though, will be planned to be a vote next week on contempt.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Today will be the capstone to Anthony Fauci's 40 years of abuse of power at NIH. In the end, must imagine Fauci believes he got away with it. But still, late at night, even the guilty must become anxious, rerunning the scenarios through his mind, wondering, latching on to lingering doubts, and worrying. Did his actions lead to the largest man-made plague in human history? Are the millions dead
Look at
the
his
result
hand
of his
shaking.
experiments or experiments that he approved that increased the pathogenicity of deadly viruses? History will judge. but
Look
the
at that.
facts, as we now know them, paint a sordid tale of dishonesty, misjudgment, and
Ooh, an ear
ultimately
scratch.
the hubris, the likes of which the world has rarely seen. If everyone will remain seated for
That
a
was
few
new.
minutes, we're going to let Dr.
The ear
Fauci
scratch was
answer.
new.
Thank you.
Oh, I'm waiting to hear if Alex Stein does anything. Go to hell.
And we are going to continue our
We-
live
we
coverage
did get to
here
go
on
to hell.
C-SPAN, take you to a briefing on the upcoming D.C.
Yeah.
Grand Prix race with Mayor Muriel.
Why nobody? Why do you? Come on. All right. Oops. Sorry. Switching the. There we go. Guys, thank you for joining me in the chat for that nonsense. Yeah, all you guys that chatted, you guys made that a lot more tolerable than it actually was. If I was watching it at home, I would have probably broken my television. So, I appreciate you guys joining me. Look, Holly had the moment. He gets how to make viral content and embarrass and humiliate Fauci. Honestly, everybody should have done that. They should have just asked him, who won the World Series last year, who won the Super Bowl this year, who performed at the Super. It should have just been because it's a complete waste of time. Complete waste of time. Like, how can he go to prison for contempt of Congress? I'm going to ask ChatGPT that right now, and I will read it to you. Let's see. Can someone go to prison for contempt of Congress? Let's see what ChatGPT tells me. Probably a better question for Grok, but yeah, let's ask Grok. Criminal contempt. If someone is subpoenaed by Congress and willfully refuses to testify or produce documents without a valid legal excuse, the House Senate can vote to hold them in contempt and refer to the matter to the U.S. Attorney for the District of Columbia for prosecution. He can get up to 1 year in prison and a fine, currently up to $100,000. Well, that's nothing for Fauci. Civil contempt. Congress can ask federal court to enforce a subpoena. The court may order compliance, and if the person still refuses, the court, not Congress, can impose coercive sanctions, including jail, until the person complies. Inherent contempt. I wish they could put him in prison until he agrees to comply, because he probably would never agree to comply, and he would rot in prison. I think that's probably your best chance. If I had to guess, that would be what I think is probably the only thing that can happen in this situation, to be fair. But look, I'm telling you, completely boring, complete waste of time. We, like, the Congress needs to know, like the congressman that were just, what was the congressman that was just asking questions over and over and over again? Like this in the second round. Like in the second round, he's asking the questions over again, knowing he's going to plead the fifth. I know you got to do that, I guess, to prove contempt. But you know what's interesting is that Rand Paul only asked him one question, I think, during the terms of his pardon. At least directly, he addressed it. Can you get him? If they say no, he's pardoned, so he's compelled to answer. Can they get him on contempt for each question? Can he serve a year in prison for each question? I don't know. I just want to see Fauci in prison. I don't think that's too much to ask. I don't think it's too much to ask. I posted this yesterday. I'll share it with you. It's important. You know, I guess there's probably one person watching me. I'll do it for my friend. This was the last text messages she sent my wife. It says, Mr. referring to me. She was talking to my wife. So I have them horse bills. Can I buy one off him? I'll pay expedited. And she died the next day. There was a conversation I had with her. It's not on that. There was a conversation I had with her when she first told me she had COVID. And I said, hey, here's like the American Doctor website, or whatever that website was. That was the only place online you could go and get ivermectin. I said, go and get it. And she says, well, if it gets serious, I'll get it. And I says, going to be too late. And her last text message was asking how to get and like Fauci is the one that made it too difficult to get the ivermectin pills, to get hydroxychloroquine. He was the one that made it too difficult. And just, he murdered a lot of people with that for his own greed and selfishness. Fauci is an evil, murderous human being. He walks free because, I can't understand the corrupt nature of the Biden administration that would do that pardon. I can't imagine the corruption of the administration that would do that. Millions of people died and you pardoned him. Why? Like it's just like the country gets no justice. It's super evil and corrupt. It really bothers me super deeply when I think of my friend who died. She was in our wedding. And just to think that one of the reasons she died, well, a lot of the reasons she died were all because of Fauci's policies. You know, the organizations that forced you to get a vaccine to keep your job. You know, the respirator machines, remdesivir, all that sort of stuff. I mean, like all of that sort of stuff just killed lots and lots of people, and Fauci profited from it. He profited from it. Just unbelievably disgusting. Unbelievably disgusting. I hate it so much. I don't think, somebody just replied and said the body language panel on YouTube is going to have a field day with this one. Yeah, I was pointing that out. I don't know if you guys saw. One of the things he would do is his fingers would go into his sleeve, and they would just keep getting deeper and deeper the more awkward the question was for him. If you like, that was one I noticed. But I'm sure there's some feeds where the camera was only on him, and I bet you some stuff got missed because C-SPAN, they try to make everybody look excellent, super terrible. We were watching this. I didn't care about who was asking the question. I wanted to see his face 100% of the time. But most of the time it was there, but sometimes it was. But yeah, Holly was the hero. I think I bet you Holly has some younger Gen Z congressional aides that he listens to. But super embarrassing for every other. Rand Paul did what needed to be done. He ran the procedure. And I think Rand Paul actually really wants to see Fauci in prison. I think he really believes that, and wants that and desires that, but just nothing he can do. And Congress isn't going to, change the laws to make it easier for politicians to go to prison, because they would probably all wind up in prison. I don't know of a way that we're going to clear things. It's just not going to happen. It's just not. So that was a great example. Maybe we can get him arrested on jaywalking. I think Fauci should be followed by police officers. He should be given a ticket for every red light. He should be arrested every time he jaywalks. He should be thrown into prison every time he walks on grass at a park where he's not supposed to walk on grass. He should be one of the most ticketed. Whatever you can do to get Fauci a fine, make him appear in court, give him jail overnight at the jail. Whatever it takes. Whatever it takes. Fauci needs justice in some way for something. It's really repulsive and disgusting that he walked out of that congressional hall without handcuffs on. So, people died as a result of him. Real people died. And one of the things that really angers me the most is this whole Fauci thing really brought up all my repressed memories of during the COVID era, and just completely disgusts me and irritates me. It's one, how quickly we can forget how awful things were during that time. And just reading Fauci's diary is one of the most repulsive things I've ever seen. It's one of the most repulsive things I've ever seen. Truly disgusting human being who kept body counts as his fame rose, like a serial killer. The more people died, the more famous he got. And he wrote about it on the same page. It's absolutely repulsive and disgusting, and he should be in prison, and he should never see any view without bars behind it ever again. And that won't happen. But as I said, there's two forms of justice: in eternity or hell, or the righteousness of Christ. Hopefully he picks the righteousness of Christ. But I'm not looking like that man's got a stone heart. It's looking like he's got a pretty stone heart. So anyways, thank you guys for joining me. I honestly, I didn't think he was going to show up. I wasn't planning on doing it, and I woke up at 5:30 and saw that he was there, and I was like, oh, maybe I should just live stream the hearing, and you know that's what I did. So thanks to everybody that joined. Thanks for everyone that entered the chat. It was fun. I mean, it was fun and like, you know, like torturing yourself sort of way, like plucking your beard hairs, like that kind of fun. But yeah, somebody just responded and said he won't be able to plead the fifth before God. Amen. Amen. That is absolutely true. You know, but like I said, man, like he's got to jaywalk at some point. You know, like there's got to be something. And here's my other hope: like you don't just stop being that evil and corrupt, right? So he's got to be like there's got to be more evil stuff he's working on. Like evil villains in comic books don't just get away and then just stop being evil villains. Like they're always going to be evil villains. So there's got to be some stuff that he has done because people don't just quit being evil. Like they just don't quit. They don't go, oh, well, got away with that one. Better clean up my life. That doesn't really happen that often. It doesn't happen that often. So my hope and prayer is that Fauci is emboldened to do evil in such a way that we can catch him and actually he winds up in prison. That is my hope. And I pray that happens. He's an evil, corrupt man. Yeah, I mean, look, I think I saw a tweet in his diary where he got a vaccine injury and was telling people that there were no vaccine injuries while he reported that he got one. Just insane level of evil grift. Super disgusting. And so anyway, that's all I got. Super depressed, super depressing. But everybody have a great day, and thank you guys. Seriously, thank you guys for joining. And if you're watching, please share, and maybe I'll do these streams more often about politics. But it's so boring, it drives me crazy. But maybe coming from an approach of politics is boring is fun for people. I don't know. Let me know. All right, guys, have a great day. Enjoy breathing fresh air. And remember all the people that died as a result of Anthony